I don't think too many people will look at the work of, say, like Officer Tatum or Candace Owens and say this is black media. Oh no, this is media made by a black person, and some people would be even a little less charitable than that.
I made sure I watched yesterday so I can remember how much I hate it. Is Tyler Perry movies. That is such black commodification. Just absolutely, like, come get to chitlins. All the white people are like, hee hee, they said collard greens. That's so good.
And it's worth noting too, even with the Hamilton stuff, maybe you enjoy like the hip hop music or whatever. Great, you know, it's well written music, but a lot of people are going home like, oh wow, the founding fathers really were cool, you know?
It's like appropriation porn power fantasy, right? Like, it's white people get to be the black person, which nobody cares. Like, we're black people every day, so there's no real strength in that, and it's essentially a white person power fantasy.
Is running on color time. Okay.
Yo,
hello.
You said that to me earlier, yo. That
Didn't need to be said.
Vaush is on color time. Somebody clip that now.
The second I said it too, he came in.
Yeah, just in time for it to be caught by all my people. Hello.
Great. Well,
What's happening?
hello. How are you? I see that you are our head Ukraine reporter. So we have the Ukrainian reporter here. Hello, hello.
Yeah, somebody had to step up to the plate. Hi, sorry for being late. I assumed it would be in the group chat that was made, so I was just sort of patiently staring at it.
I was sitting there for like a hot minute. I was like, wait a minute.
Lies.
Dumbass probably.
He knows exactly. He's just trying to make you feel better. No, it's just you're technologically illiterate. It's okay. This is all just a big ploy to get you my Discord server. I'm not even hosting a panel. Have a good night.
All right. Well, it worked. You got me. Well, you shamed me into being here, actually.
Yeah.
So actually,
it's not. I didn't even do it. It was him.
See,
He's the one that did.
Not actually my technical ineptitude, but my social ineptitude that you took advantage of.
He did it. He told me to do it, and he took advantage of my social ineptitude.
You took advantage of, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So hello. Welcome to our little Black History Month assembly. We thought it would be a good idea for us to go ahead and have basically a panel dedicated to making sure that for once what we're trying to do, which is have white people listen to us, actually happens. And you're like the head of white guys. So that's why we got you.
Oh my God.
CEO of white men.
I made it.
CEO.
I fucking made it. I'm the CEO of white guys.
Yeah.
Tell grandma.
So very interestingly, because I've been molding for the last 3 months, but you didn't know, this panel is about Black media. Sorry, your face just looked a little bit.
I've watched Naruto.
Okay, well,
he knows.
He's done his homework.
Yeah, so essentially, we want to run the format in whatever way you'd like to. Just the one condition is, of course, making sure people know who everybody is here, because we are all pretty small Black creators. And to be honest, every Black creator on this platform, which is not Twitch today, but usually is Twitch, is like everyone's just like a decimal of the percentage that you are. So no one probably knows who any of us are. So as long as you allow us to have the moment where we say who we are, we can basically just go to at your flow. And what we mean by Black media is movies, TV, music, arts, theater, I guess. Yeah.
Well, yeah, obviously I would like to be made familiar, though I do know some of you. Please. Okay, so I am, as I understand, and you'll have to forgive me, I am a little bit drained from the ongoing Ukraine conflict coverage, but it's
been wild, bro.
Yeah, it's been not great. But I'm hosting this panel, so I'm pointing all around then. So I guess in that case, introductions. Ender, since you're in my top left, I don't know if everyone has the same top left. How are you doing?
I am doing great. Thank you, comrade. Again, my name, it's going to show up as Ender. My name is actually Aston Mack. You can find me at Aston Mack TV. I am the founder of the Orlando Freedom Fighters, a local political activist group in the area. Check out my stream if you want to see what activism looks like as a form of praxis online.
Sweet. And Endless Cemetery, so named in Discord, possibly not in real life.
No, Endless Cemetery is not my real name, but I'm from Baltimore. I usually have a giant Baltimore County flag behind me. I am just a himbo who kind of cares, and I'm really into anti-fascism, super into Black anarchism and labor history. That's what a lot of my like political content is about. I am also a filthy gamer. So I am an FGC head. I play Mortal Kombat 11 and Soul Calibur 6. I also do Gunpla builds. This past Valentine's Day, me and my best friend, I just built a RG wing from Gundam Wing. Or I built the lower half of it anyway. I just built the dick. The feet and the dick was all I was interested in, so that's all I built. And yeah, that's kind of my thing. I go crazy on Twitter sometimes. That's really about it. You can catch me on Twitch and on YouTube and Facebook Live, and you can catch all my links to everything else there.
Thank you. And I know who you are, Car. Howdy. We've interacted several times, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, we've met. I can't wait to see what my DMs look like after this one. My comments are already getting ridiculous. I am Car. I do Black anarchist political commentary on YouTube. Sometimes I work out the occasional stream where I give lectures or play games, or I also do make independent electronic music. And I'm a big fan of dogs, guns, and whiskey.
I like 2 of those 3 things. I think whiskey tastes gross. It's the dogs and the guns.
I thought you were going to take cats over dogs. I figured you're going to be on board for the whiskey and guns.
I
know you're a cat guy.
I am, but I like dogs too. You know, it's a close second. Don't get me wrong. A cat, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing well. And also, just as a heads up, there's one more person that will be coming. They are just visiting their grandma. They should be here by 8:30. So it's not going to be. I'm not going to be the only vaginal owner during this one. So yay!
To your knowledge, you don't know. You don't know about me. You don't know my life.
Been making some changes lately.
Okay,
Yes.
so hello, I'm KataraNä, or you could call me KataraNä if you enjoy doing tongue rolls. I am a physicist. I am moving to Berlin on Sunday, Yahoo! Yeah, I also do a bunch of different types of streaming, variety stuff. I guess you would call me a socialist. I am not entirely sure if that's exactly what all I would call myself is a general leftist. I had the pleasure to speak to the Nazi porn professor, and I'm currently on a "It's Okay to Be Smart" and Coom arc at the moment.
Nice. Oh, okay, good. The pro cooming takes will definitely endear yourself to my audience. The paradigm.
I use she/they pronouns. I just remembered that your audience likes that too.
Yes, they're very fastidious about checking on that. And the paradigm shift. Howdy.
Hello. I have an intro, so I'm gonna do it. Just I wanted to address Endless. You and I have been in the same room before, and we never knew it. And I watched your game tapes, so I don't want none of that smoke. You can see me in Tekken.
Oh.
We good. But yeah, like I know who you are. Like I know who you are. I know who you are. I'm a fighting game player myself. It sounds so nice when bigger creators say my name. Now all of them have said it.
Clout. You know what I'm saying?
Let's see if we
Get
can
that
do this.
clout, shark it, eat it all up. You have to be like those what are they? The .io games where the blob eats the bigger blobs, right? Okay, every bit you can get.
All right, let me see. Oh wait, no, I gotta do the intro. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marquise Paradigm, also known as The Paradigm Shift. You can find me at twitch.tv/the_paradigm_shift. Please do me a favor and email Twitch right now and let them know I want my username back. I hate the underscores. We talk politics, we talk games, we talk art, poetry, philosophy, foreign. I talk about everything. If there's something that you want to talk about, there's been a goddamn segment that I've made on it. If you're interested in any of that or seeing any of my high energy rants going on for probably 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 hours, please do me a favor. And yet again, follow me at twitch.tv/the_paradigm_shift. You can also find me on Twitter at Marquise Paradigm. Twitter at Marquise Paradigm. You can find me on YouTube at The Paradigm Shift. I am... Vaush was the reason why I got into politics, and then it was the Hassan. Sorry, give me one second, because your people are doing the thing, and I can hear it in my head.
The thing.
Vaush, you're the reason why I got into
people?
politics.
I just said, holy
and
shit.
Vaush is the one that got me into politics, and I watched your content a lot, and then I moved to Hassan, and now I'm kind of carving my own space. So if you're interested and you like the lighting or the setup or me, please do me a favor, hit that follow. Thank you. That's it.
I just hope the thing isn't a bad thing. Thank you. And I'm Vaush. Not, despite all appearances, black.
According to Haitians, you are, so it's okay.
I'll take that. You know, overplayed, voted for Biden jokes aside. You know, okay, so I'm keep it real with you. All right, the panel's on black media.
Yeah.
I am ready and willing to be educated. Okay. Now, so wait. So when you said another person is coming, do you mean like in 2 minutes, or we should just go ahead with the?
You can start, and
All
then
right.
they'll probably just come in and introduce themselves when they come in.
All right. So my opening question. Okay. What the hell is black media? Because
Oh, that's a good question.
there are a couple of blocks that I think of. Right.
Excellent question.
I made the Naruto joke. I could have made a DBZ joke, except I haven't seen DBZ, so I would have been lying if I said I'd watched that. But there are pieces of media that I think in common culture are like associated with Black Americans, and then there are things that Black Americans actually make, and then there are things that aren't associated and that they didn't make, but still get roped in. Like, I don't know, Blazing Saddles, I guess, would be like a good case study there. And I guess
Case vibes.
I don't know where the lines are. So, like, what does that even mean?
I think
What are the rules
between all of us? Yeah, because like even when we were trying to get ready for this panel on my server, we were arguing whether or not Django even counts as being a black movie. So I guess that's something that everyone could go around for, because
Yeah, I think it's, well, like many of these things, sometimes it's flexible, it's pliable. It depends on, is it a black movie if it's explicitly made by a black filmmaker's vision, or is it a black movie because it resonates with a greater black community? Both of those, in my experience, when we're talking about media like plays, movies, music, radio, whatever, books, both of those can be considered black media in my experience.
Well, and then you get into the question of like, what do you do with the Candace Owens and the Koch brothers of the world that seem to be anti-black media, but are literally media that is black owned? Like, where are we deciding to draw the lines? I think that the best approach that we should take to this, honestly, is like kind of almost like a utilitarian thing. How many black people resonate with this, and if it's above X threshold, maybe, like, I would say, like, if we're talking about just hundreds, maybe thousands, maybe that doesn't get to count since there are millions of us. So it has to be at least like, it's gotta reach a lot of people. It's gotta be accepted among a lot of people. Let's start. Why don't we start with things what did you watch when you were growing up?
Wait, but I do have a question on top of that, though, really quickly. So you say that it's things that resonate with a lot of us, but then at the same time, there's like a whole media of like Nollywood movies. My parents watch a lot of Nigerian movies, but within Black America, I don't think most people even think of it. But unfortunately, it seems that like Black Americans kind of have like a stronghold on what Blackness is within at least the international context, because most people don't have the opportunity to know about like what Caribbeans are up to, or what Africans
just kind
are
of
up
comes
to.
from like American hegemony over global culture, more or less, and that's just kind of a microcosm of that. At least that's my opinion there.
So would you end up including something like Nigerian movies into the threshold of saying that that's a black movie, since very much it's black cast and black directors and black writers, but I mean, does it resonate with millions like the way that maybe Friday might?
And so the Black Assembly was saddled with the one question that they would be answering for the rest of their time. What is blackness?
So, well,
yeah, maybe we'll answer that question today. Scholars take note.
Yeah, no, we'll get there. Listen, many a black cookout have solved all of world hunger. We just, we got to write it down and disseminate it to the masses. But, being a little bit older, growing up my parents are really old, they're in their 70s now. So they grew up at a time where black media was absolutely something distinct. You couldn't just turn on ABC or NBC and see people who looked like you on the sitcoms or on the news or anywhere like that. So these are they gathered under famous actors like Sidney Poitier. They would seek out the few Black TV shows that did penetrate the social consciousness, like the Sanford and Son, just for an example, and things like that, are Good Times. And so it is ultimately, I think, when we talk about what is Black media, I don't think too many people will look at the work of, say, like Officer Tatum or Candace Owens and say this is Black media. Oh no, this is media made by a Black person. And some people would be even a little less charitable than that. But I think it depends on how it resonates, I think, within the community. And then
I would love to bounce off of that. My definition of Black media as a whole has always been, well, especially America-centric, the proper representation of what it is to live the Black experience. Like, there are certain things that you're just going to see and say, yo, I remember that, or I went through that, or I did that. And that's just not an experience that everyone can resonate with. They can find it funny, they can find it entertaining. But for me, Black media has always been a very core-centered focus on specifically, like, and I hate to say it this way, but like the hood. Like, and the reason why I think that has been the more prevailing definition for me is because once you get up into an upper echelon of income, society, blah blah, you move out, you're already surrounded by different ideologies and different social circumstances that, yeah, we're all poor, but like, you didn't go through your mom coming at you trying to beat you with a belt or a shoe. Like, you didn't get the switch.
Oh no, they got the chancla.
Yeah, right. No, the switch breaks all class boundaries. No matter what, my mom's trying to beat my ass with a piece of something.
Okay,
well, it
yeah,
doesn't matter.
But then wouldn't you say, because then wouldn't you create like an alienated class of middle and upper class Black folk that don't get to be in charge of white media?
That's exactly what happens. It's like, you guys think that like Black media is like the hood, but like for myself, like I wasn't really, my parents never saw the point of watching it because they're like, well, this isn't what you have. So basically I had three shows, Sister, Cosby Show, oh, my favorite rapist, and then Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So like that's just these three things and watch them over and over again.
That's where you get that split of Black media and how it's represented among the diaspora, though, is that you have the realistic Black media. So when we talk about movies like Boys in the Hood and things like that, you have something that resonates with people living in the 70s and 80s inner city, and they ain't got shit, and around them is crime and blight and dilapidation. And then you also have aspirational Black media, and actually Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is a great point. We're talking about a show where they have a Black British butler, right? and Quincy Jones created the term BAP, Black American Princesses, for Will's adoptive sister, or for Will's cousin, excuse me. And so you have that show where you're showing Black success and you're showing Black affluence, something that also was hard to find on the screen. The realistic Black experience in the inner city and the examples of Black affluence, your Huxtables or your Fresh Prince, were both things that were hard to locate.
I'd like to ask a clarifying question in that line, if I may. I understand what you're saying. A lot of Black culture is associated with depictions of poverty because a lot of Black people have been subjected to poverty. That kind of tracks, And it seems like a consequence of that is that when you have Black people in middle or upper class circumstances, it's harder to relate to these elements of Black culture in America, which subsequently means they feel more distanced from it, which means that when Black people are doing economically well, it seems like there's a disconnect between I don't know if roots is the right term, but like maybe a lack of parallel experience, because I've noticed that a lot of, at least from what I've heard, I grew up in Beverly Hills, so the Black folk I know were pretty well to do, but there was an almost chauvinistic disregard for what they considered to be the lesser elements of Black culture, which corresponded pretty heavily to stuff that was, stuff from the hood or whatever, and that disconnect is politically destructive, at least from what I see.
Yeah, it's politically charged.
called
Yeah, what do you do?
It's vehement, and so what you can do is, well, sometimes it's like an overcorrection of sorts. You know, maybe they or some immediate family members came from that poverty and saw some of the unfortunate things that go hand in hand with poverty, you know, engaging in things like distribution of narcotics or petty crime, things like that. And so achieving, you know, middle class affluence or success, they sort of overcorrect to say, well, that's not us. You know, this is something that we were able to transcend. So we don't want to associate with that anymore. I don't think that doesn't apply to everyone, obviously. Most of the people, because I spent a sizable portion of my life in a white suburb as well. And, you know, the black people I interacted with there, all three households in my neighborhood they were still very cognizant of what other black people went throughout the city. And they weren't things that people looked down upon or things like that. Sorry, I talked over Paradigm. Where you at?
I'm here. Sorry, my battery just it's something weird's going on with my camera, and I guess it's like too high quality. I'm just gonna let it charge for a little bit, but y'all know I still got that energy to keep it. I wanted to go on that, and Kat, you said something that was super important. That split. When I think about black media, that's the problem that I have, is that I noticed that in like shows like The Fresh Prince, the parts that really hit hard are the parts that generally are coming from broken families. It's like no matter how affluent you are, those reminders of like what you go through will still be represented in media. A lot of black media play, and I think we had this conversation before, but it plays on trauma a lot. And my substantial issue is, when addressing it, how do you come to a form of understanding that, like, well, we know for a fact that social status does not take away or like hinder your blackness. Like, you know, Supreme Court judges get pulled over by cops. Like, it's not like a thing where you're gonna, oh, I got money now, like they're not gonna bother me. It's always gonna be a problem. In media, however, I feel like the disconnect is always you got to be very poor and very traumatized by like what you've seen in the area, or like you just didn't grow up in it. So the parts that we the parts that we find similar generally are the like Will's dad coming back and then leaving him again. All that money, he could have been living it up. Y'all got a guest house? Like, what's up? I'll be in his life. He chose to leave, because that is a reminder that like that's what happens. Some black fathers are not ready to be fathers, but his mother's always present. That's something that I can relate to, but also still find humor or at least levity in what goes on around that situation. And that's like my main issue with trying to solve the identity of losing your blackness as you become further and further up. Because what do you still assign yourself to? What do you still relate to? Because mostly what we relate to is the shit that happened down here, if that makes sense.
Yo, Aston, let me go really quick and then you go, because you're going to say some shit I'm not going to be able to follow.
Can I go after you guys?
Yeah, sure.
Sick.
Oh wait, wait, hold on, that's my call. Yeah, sure.
Oh, sorry.
All right, continue.
Yeah. All right, sorry.
Vaush isn't used to black spaces. He's used to hierarchies.
Yeah, I'm an anarcho hierarchist. Okay, it's new on the scene ideology.
This reminds me of like two concepts that I kind of think about when it comes to media, or at least two words that I have loose definitions of, because I was just having a conversation with Cara about having loose definitions of words. But I think of Afrofuturism and Afro-pessimism. And when you have the Afro-pessimism, that's the trauma and that's the pain that we've been through. And that can have, mixed messaging. And then the Afrofuturism is like, we were talking about that disconnect. That's kind of the stuff that I had to look to, because I came from kind of a suburban white area, and there were no characters really. Like, there was lots of hood characters and stuff, and the area that I lived in wasn't rich enough for me to relate directly to Will from Fresh Prince. So like, it was comic book characters for me. So like John Stewart, Green Lantern, the best Green Lantern, Night Thrasher, because I was really into computers and I was really into hacking. So
And no Static Shock. Oh man,
you knew I was getting there, bro. You knew I was
For me,
getting there.
bro,
It's
Static
all about
Shock.
Spawn, though.
Spawn, of course.
Spawn was a G.
But it's crazy because some of my favorite comic book characters, not just black characters, but like Bishop, Spawn, were like cops and like military men. And like my favorite character is Judge Dredd, who is a literal fucking Nazi cop. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming from. And I get what Carr was saying with the proximity to poverty. The proximity to poverty kind of makes you want to overcorrect. My grandmother was a sharecropper, and like her mother's family kind of came from middle class, but it was because the plantation that they were on was the same plantation that her mother was born on, her mother's father's father were all enslaved on. So when my grandmother, when they ran off that plantation, like straight ran in the middle of the night at gunpoint and shit, my great grandfather was a super G. Like my grandmother's accent is very different from my mother's accent. Like you can hear my accent. My accent is very similar. My mother and I have very similar accents, very like almost unplaceable, very like plain suburban white accents, for lack of a better description. But if you talk to my grandmother, like I have recordings of my grandmother just because I thought that shit was mad fascinating and I wanted to have, records of that. Her talking about shit like picking cotton from sun up to sundown at 8 years old, like that kind of shit. But yeah, that's kind of where I wanted to fucking go. But yeah, I rambled, so that's why I wanted to go first.
Yeah, weed'll do that to you. You know, you know what's interesting? By the way, I just want to remind everybody in the audience, oftentimes we talk about slavery as such a distant matter. Don't forget that May Louise Walls Miller was the last slave released from slavery in 1962. So please, let's not forget, like many of us have pictures of our former masters. It's actually a really common one. So when we talk about the distance to slavery, but I actually wanted to kind of talk a little bit of an anecdote that I think kind of describes what we're talking about here, because what I think is happening is the answer to the question is just yes, it's all Black media. And I think what's happening is, well, I started a Twitter a little while ago, right? And it's actually because of Vaush that I started the Twitter. He engaged with one Professor Flowers, and I was so enraged by Professor Flowers that I actually started a Twitter in a like, hey, this gives things a bad look. I was very familiar with like this type of rhetoric in the movement. And I was actually frustrated because it seemed to me like the only presentation there was of Black folk on the internet was a very small slither of us, a very small sliver of the activists, right? And that has to do with what we're talking about in a large. At any given time, on any given year, what gets to be Black media has a very small spotlight that we only see very small slithers of the total mountain that is Black media, right? And I think that's what we're really talking about, is that maybe not all the forms of media that we personally enjoy had time to shine, but there always seems to be at any given time a kind of spotlight on a group or a subject matter within the Black community, whether it be like, hey, we're going to do the 90s, it's us dating white girls and dealing with the fathers trope, the story that you saw all throughout the 90s over and over again, or whether it be now we're kind of focused on Black horror is the current trend, or we go back to Blaxploitation in the 1970s that glorified street culture. There always seems to be just a spotlight, and that seems to be usually where the zeitgeist or the idea of where the Black stereotypes of that generation kind of come from. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Endless was right. There was no way he was going to follow that.
Yeah,
no way he was going to follow
this man Aston. I will follow this man Aston into battle. I swear.
In fact, no.
You can give him 30 seconds to fuck your head up for your life.
Hold on, we have a new entrant into the panel. Hello.
Hey, hi everyone.
Hello. I'm going to give this my
what up, honey?
Honey. We'll just go with Honey, I think, because
It's Honey.
Honey. Hello, Honey.
Silent.
I gave it a good effort. It's really the thought that counts. Hi. Shout yourself out. Introduce yourself, please.
Just quickly, sorry for slight interruption. My name's Iesha. You call me Honey. I am a proud Afro-Latina, and I am a model based in New York. short introduction.
Oh,
And why do you always forget to tell people she's running for Miss New York? Okay, she's running for Miss New York.
Beauty
Okay.
queen.
that's
And
pretty
we're all
cool, you know.
stands. All of us are stands for her.
We stand.
Simps.
I was gonna mention that at
Simps
the end, but yeah, I run for Miss New York.
That's cool. I couldn't, you know, I couldn't do that. I'll be honest with you. I couldn't do that. I don't have the chops. Well,
I don't
welcome.
know, man. You've been losing a lot of weight. You have that like beautiful like teenage Miss America body going on lately.
Oh, yeah, it's true. I've always been told I have very strong feminine mannerisms. I appreciate that. So we were talking about, well, I guess very broadly, we were talking about what black media even means. I wanted to get so I guess to introduce the topic to you and to get everyone's opinion. Kat, we haven't gotten your full take, and I'd like to hear from you, and then Honey, if possible.
Yeah, so I guess black media for me is not the same as everybody else's because yeah, all of us are different. But specifically because I'm not like a person that's descendant of like chattel slavery. So a lot of things are about like, oh, I got out of like even things that are about the middle class. It's like how we got out of the hood into the middle class, but trying to struggle with the mixture of like not forgetting where you're from while also trying to move forward. And like that's just not something I entirely can resonate with. So even when I get close to being like, ooh, okay, this is something that at least the dynamic in the household is similar, a lot of the underlying messages are not something I could catch on to. Like one of the first pieces of media that came out while I was still alive was Blackish, and they would talk about some of the situation with like the father coming from like a bit of a more of like a come up story, but that's just not something I can understand. So I guess once again, it kind of gets into that thing where it feels like America has kind of like a monopoly on like what it means to be Black. African Americans are the correct Black in America, and like I'm just kind of trying to like interact and trying to get by as best as I can, because like what can come off as me being dismissive is just an experience. And yeah, that can get a little bit like wishy-washy. And I guess the only time in my entire life where I've seen even something somewhat close to like my I guess maybe my parent upbringing would be something like in Living Color, they had like a Jamaican family that's like, we have 10 jobs, well, I have 5 jobs, well, I have 6 jobs, and that's like 20 years old now. And that's like the only thing that we'll ever talk about Caribbeans. There's like no type of Black media that really even talks about Caribbeans at all. So it just seems like that's still like a pretty big chunk of the Black community that gets left out. So the best I have to go off of is sure, Fresh Prince, I guess.
That's sadly true. I mean, for the longest time, the only thing I knew about Jamaicans was Cool Runnings.
Oh yeah, and like Top Shotters.
And the word Bumbo Ross Claus a couple times. Yeah.
As
Luke
we
Cage.
all know.
Luke Cage was pretty cool, I thought.
And as for you, Honey, when you think of Black media, like what it means, even what the boundaries are, do you have any particular thoughts on that?
So when I even first heard the topic, immediately I think of like, social media apps. There's always the black part, Black Twitter, Black Facebook, Black Instagram. So specifically, it's like you think about, okay, so what makes it Black, and whether it be the relatable memes, whether it be the type of humor that is always said throughout that side, the type of discussions that are said, the discourse. That's what the first thing I thought about Black media. And then in terms of, I guess what it means to me, I guess I can relate to Kat because I was raised more on my mom's side of the family, so it was heavily Puerto Rican based. So I didn't grow up with Black movies. You could say like Boys in the Hood, or like what is that movie with Tyrese and Taraji P. Henson? I think Baby Boy, if I'm not mistaken. I wasn't raised on that. I was watching telenovelas all the time with my grandmother. So it was watching Channel 6 News and then movies like that, or even based like in terms of like music and artists. So I can relate to that. I wasn't raised on that. I was raised in a completely different language. And then as I started to into who I am as a person and going into like through different schools and meeting different people, that's when I started to see like more of what Black media was. But I guess to me, Black media is it's like a separate distinction of what we call our own safe space in a way, because we feel safe in Black media, and whether it's going off a white-based app, we will make it Black to make it safe for us.
Yeah, you know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of how when we've been doing these panels and we've been coming like to all these different conclusions and these different perspectives, we all kind of had these weird things that were universal no matter where you were. And the best way I can describe that is maybe it's that Black media is media through the perspective of the oppressed instead of the oppressor. Like, as in, for once you're actually a Black person inside a system of like, no matter whether it be like Boys in the Hood or like Get Out, there's this like lens of you're actually in a system that where you're not the one on top, where this is what it's like to interact with kind of white society. And to be honest, no matter what the media is, as long as the protagonist and the main characters tend to be Black, that tends to carry through no matter what. So I think maybe it's those universal things that we were talking about before that we've all kind of similarly experienced from our own perspective. No?
But I'm just saying, like, Samuel L. Jackson didn't have to die in Deep Blue Sea. They just took him out. Like, I'd never got that. Props to LL Cool J for living through it, but like, first man down. It's always the first man down. But to go further on that, I was listening to everybody and I realized that there is a level in a lot of Black media where no matter how far on top you are, there's still a level to fall from. And like the show, like compare the show Friends to Good Times. Like for Friends, it's just casual. We're just hanging out, you know, and something come up. Seinfeld, something come up. Show about nothing. Like Good Times, The Fresh Prince. Well, not Good Times. I should just use The Fresh Prince for this. No, yeah, I could even use Family Matters if we're gonna go that far. Like affluent, but there's always this reminder that like there's still something above you. And it's crazy because I feel like you said it perfectly, that there's this lens that gets captured, like this specific narrow vision. And is it just because that's the most unique and popular thing that people
gives me
will...
an interesting question.
Go for it.
Yeah, so I was wondering to a certain degree, like, do you guys think how much of what we consider Black culture, like Black media rather, is a product of commodification, like things that are meant to be sold to us as quote unquote Black media?
A large portion of it is, for sure. That was something, you know, when I was, you know, in junior high and high school, something that really bothered the shit out of me was, and I think a couple people have even parodied this, was that a lot of Black media out of nowhere got centered around specifically like Black dance troops or Black marching bands.
Yeah.
You know, you had Drumline come out, and then you had Rise, and then you had Stomp the Yard.
Yeah.
And I had friends and family who were older than me that were in frats, and their attitude was, "What the fuck you doing showing them our shit?"
Yeah.
Normies are supposed to know about that.
Slaps.
No, listen, I'm not saying these are bad movies. And Rise was like you're taking something that's very, very niche, like Crumpin', and putting that on the silver screen that 80% of white America hasn't even heard of and would have no fucking clue what it is. So yeah, these aren't bad works of media, but it was this odd focus on Black dance and Black rhythm that came up, and it felt a little bit like commodification.
Yeah,
because
I can tell you why.
It was a hard focus on Black song and dance. You know.
Yeah.
I think there's some that are more commodified than others. Like for example, I think the thing that I hate, and I made sure I watched yesterday so I can remember how much I hate it, is Tyler Perry movies. That is such Black commodification. Just absolutely, like, come get to chitlins. All the white people are like, hee hee, they said collard greens. That's so good. Like, it's just such.
But he knows if he makes a movie that he's going to at least make $90 million off of it in Atlanta alone.
We do respect the grind set. I have a question, if I may, broadly to the panel. The term Black media, even as a category, you know, Obviously, Black Americans have had a pretty unique experience, to say the least, in this country. There are plenty of broader demographic groups that have pretty distinct pieces of breakout media, and it doesn't get referred to in the same way. Like when I think of, for example, queer media, which has really taken off lately, people have talked about like Steven Universe as an example of like breakout queer media hitting the mainstream. But even as it's referred to that way in some niche circles, I don't think people talk about that as a distinct entity the way people talk about Black media. Black media feels otherized in a way more historically, significant way, in a way which seems, I don't know, kind of weird, kind of like maybe, I guess to me at least, like an unnecessary distance, because they don't do that with Steven Universe, right? They're not like, well, straight people can't watch this,
Right.
How do you, am I off on that? Like, how do you?
No, you're not off. I would
That
say
was wrong.
I'll go
That's right.
fast. So I would say the main issue, the reason you see that is because going back even farther than Steven Universe, I remember when Queer as Folk came on cable TV, and
But I'm a cheerleader.
Queer Eye for the Straight Guy and things like that. And what you saw with those is that, they were considered queer media, but it was still broadly considered well done prestige media to be consumed by the masses. Oh, by the way, the focus, the characters, the elements are queer. Whereas, unfortunately, because the reason that there's that distinction between Black media and the rest is even all of these other advancements, Black media and Black representation tends to fall behind. I mean, after all, Black people were central to Stonewall, and they whitewashed the out of the dramatization of Stonewall in the movie itself. Queer as Folk was a white as hell show. It isn't until you start seeing shows like Pose and things like that where they start showing the actual Black influences on the culture. That's what I've seen as being a major part of the disconnect.
Well, what I was gonna say actually is I think that it actually has to do with an intrinsic connection between Hollywood and the exploitation of Black labor and Black people, because Hollywood was born here in America, and who was the minority that America got to exploit? Black folk. And this goes back in time, whether it be the minstrel shows that you saw in the 1800s, whether it be the birth of a nation. A matter of fact, I believe there was a whole group of media from, I think, the 1915s to like 1940 that were called race movies, which were a whole response to like the exploitation of Black people in Hollywood film. Right. And then when we went into the exploitation movies of the 70s, movies that were just made to kind of turn a buck, we started doing blaxploitation films and blaxploitation films. Well, they thought that they were portraying us negatively by making us like street culture, by, showing us doing drugs, having lots of women and shooting guns. But as Dare would find out in the 90s, that's just a recipe to get people to like something. So it blew up in the mainstream and started being one of the key forms of the exploitation films that made money. There were other types of exploitation films. There were LGBTQ exploitation films. There were ones for all the other minorities as well. There were even like lefty exploitation film experiments. But the
Nazi
one that
exploitation, don't forget that.
Yeah, exactly. But the one that took off was blaxploitation, and that just has to do with a product of America's obsession with the Black struggle, and it has to do with the audience of America specifically. And I think that's where the difference is. It's just the history that specifically between Hollywood and Black culture.
There's also low-key the fact that mine's quick. I was also just gonna throw in the point I usually throw out, because we mentioned Sidney Poitier earlier about how like the medium of film itself was low-key racist because it was designed for and by white people in its inception. So like when you're doing things like color correcting and lights and all that, you have to do stuff special for darker skin. Like with Sidney Poitier, in the movie In the Heat of the Night, like he's sweating and stuff, and that adds ambiance to the film, but that's literally because they had no fucking clue how to light him. So they had all these like lights around him, and he was just dripping sweat. But yeah, were you gonna say, Paradigm?
Pat, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think one thing that could also perhaps attribute to the fact that Black movies don't get shown as much is like, so for example, for queer movies, I feel very comfortable showing it to like straight friends and everything, and like just allowing them to like see like, oh, people are just like you and I. But I suppose that every time I've tried to show something that's like uniquely Black to somebody, it seems a lot harder to try to explain. For example, like I remember in high school, I tried to show some people like Boondocks to explain some different tropes within the Black community. And it came off more as it felt like I was like it was being laughed at rather than laughed with. Especially like trying to show the episode of like Tom being afraid to go to jail. Like I did not want to show anybody like anything further of that, because it just I don't think there was a learning moment like the way that like when I watched Call Me by Your Name there can be, like this can just be a love story, whereas Boondocks it was like, haha, you Blacks are sure funny, and I was like, I don't want to do this. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wait,
sorry. To answer.
Yeah,
go
no, the paradigm shift. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I love the thought.
Oh, it's just in the
To
Discord
answer your
now.
question, yeah. To answer your question directly, everybody pretty much answered it, but to go even a step further, when you look at this specific set of media, there are barriers to at which you can promote these things, and we are not a mainstay in Hollywood culture. So the Black experience that makes it to the silver screen is very like narrowly chopped down, and it, like there are so many gateways of things that you just can't show. And that's why I liked when you had brought up In the Heat of the Night, because I was going to bring up Bamboozled. They spoke about this specifically. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that movie Bamboozled. It's a Spike Lee joint, gotta watch.
We were gonna watch it, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Good movie.
It is a good movie. When you look at the Black experience through the movie lens, a lot of things get either watered down or are explored very heavily. So it's very hard for an audience. It's made for like a specific audience in that sense that what we're watching is something to be resonated with, and from there the other emotions will carry with it. Like it's easy for us to make fun of The Conjuring and say, why would you go with the demon? Why are you doing this? Like, you get the aggravated. But like for Get Out, it's like, oh my God, I feel that. It's very hard to, as Kat just said, to show that to somebody and get them to look at it through that similar lens. Whereas Steven Universe, they might not even pick up on it. They might not pick up on certain trends or certain ideologies being explored unless it's shown directly to their face. With a lot of Black media, especially in music, it's very plainly said out loud. This is what we're going through. This is the story. Now walk with us. A lot of people don't like to walk with the characters. They kind of want to be the third eye observer. They don't want to be directly in the middle of the story. So for this category, this other, it's because all that you'll ever get to see is the actual tale being told. There is no like general common, we're just hanging out at a cafe because we already got 6 cafe shows. Like nobody want to see that from. That's the reason why. What was the show? The Parkers. The Parkers went down.
Too.
Like, but yeah, that's the answer to your question. It's a response from Hollywood to show a specific thing and only tell that story when like Black people are just the same as everybody else. We go to coffee shops. I mean, not regularly for me, but I go to coffee shops. Like we go to the movies. You can make a film about that, but will that film land the right way with a message that you might be trying to send? For other forms of media, it's a lot easier to land that message because you can display that with any character.
If you question.
If you take matter of fact, to sum this all up, the what was the movie that Tom Cruise played the Chinese film, and he was like the warlord.
Last Samurai.
Yeah, like that. Like why did people have such a reaction to that? Because you're representing that section of history, that section of culture with different people. You can't really do that with the Black experience because it's like, yeah, I could show white people getting arrested for no reason and getting brutalized by police, but like, who's really gonna vibe with that? I hate to say it that way, but like, who gonna vibe with that? Like, I don't get it. Like, why is that happening to them? And honestly, in my opinion, at least, when I look at Black media and I see that happen to Black people. It's like, yep, now you got to do that. Yep, now you got to do that. Yep. And it's like, it's just more for us because of the history of America. If we were all equal and it was all a laid out stage and we all had equal opportunity, this and that, I'm sure we could find level ground where it wouldn't always be that, but we don't live in that world, sadly.
I'd like to follow up on that, but before...
sorry, go ahead, Vaush.
Oh, no, I'd like to follow up on...
He's muted, my fault.
No.
I was going to ask a question.
It's talking to a chat, probably.
Wait, Wait, I'm so sorry. I don't know how I got muted. My apologies. I guess I've been muted for a while.
Start using slurs.
All I wanted to say was, sorry, I had to bust them out when no one could listen. I want to follow up on that thought specifically, but I want everyone to get a chance to deliver their thoughts on this. So yeah, please go forward with that. And also, Honey, we haven't heard from you in this topic. So yeah, just in case, and then I'll ask my follow up.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask a question really quick. Do you guys think, because you use the horror movie example where it's like, don't go in there or whatever, and it's like white people do the same thing. So what I'm wondering is, to what degree do you guys think that like internalized white supremacy impacts whether, when we're looking at a character on the screen, how deeply we can get immersed in that character, both just baseline off jump and then story beats? You think that like that might contribute to the Blackness, the fact that perhaps a culture steeped in white supremacy just can't get into...
I could tell you the exact reason. I mean, I worked in Hollywood, so that's the only thing I got for you. It's the hero's journey story. Dan Harmon did the thing on it already, but the hero's journey story is always broken by Black protagonists. It's always broken by Black protagonists because there is an inherent struggle with presenting a Black protagonist in certain media. That's just the way it is. I don't...
Shout out Night of the Living Dead.
Right. Like, I don't know how to explain it to you on an ideological form, because like I've just seen the scripts. I've seen the word sets. It is just this monumental... Yeah, you're right. It is like white supremacy, because what ends up happening, or let me not get clipped out of context for that. There is a factor of white supremacy that exists within how they create scripts, how they book jobs, how they do this and that. And that is ladled through, quite literally, not only the Screen Actors Guild, but the form of the hero's journey. It is very hard to write a Black protagonist that doesn't go back to the beginning without losing everything. You remember in the end of Batman gained his... Yo, I swear to God, if somebody says spoilers, I do watch the fucking film. It's too late already. At the end of Dark Knight Rises, Christian Bale, Batman gets free, doesn't have to be Batman anymore. It is very hard to write a story about Black people where that circle ends with freedom. The only movie that does this particularly well without like saying like, oh, the Black guy survived at the end is Dope. And I don't know if anybody's seen the movie Dope, but like now I think you guys can see where I'm coming from. You see how like the story has to be written around getting into a white space, and then the victory is, I don't need it anymore. You lose everything. You lose the core component of why you started the story to tell a bigger story. That is very hard to do with anybody who isn't Black. So what you end up with a lot of these movies is this journey where the characters go through these arcs and they're able to flow through it effortlessly. I can just follow along. I can just sit and watch Die Hard. Yeah, that's a good movie. You can't do that with a Black story. It just doesn't work. And there's a huge argument going on right now, literally right now, about why that is, why directors can't nail that. And the obvious answer is because you don't experience it the way we do.
I think that... sorry, go ahead, Kat.
I was going to say that I think white supremacy does affect how much I enjoy something. I think, unfortunately, we have media in which non-people of color can be anything, and I'm never like, that's stupid, or you're making your people look bad. Whereas, like, I'll sit there... I watched Empire the other day, and I was like, I can hate this, 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 I can hate this. But it's just because I'm like, you're making us look bad. But like, why is everybody a spokesperson? I suppose because if you only have 10 pieces of Black media per year, well, if someone sees that one piece of Black media where it ends up showing us bad, then I'm like, you've ruined my entire Black year. Everyone's gonna ask if I have a cousin named Cookie now. What the fuck? So yeah, whereas other types of media don't have that issue.
Well, when you're saying that it's steeped in white supremacy, I also think of that from the aspect of the characters as well. Because here's a secret to all of the audience, all the white people out there. Watch Boondocks with your white friends, watch Boondocks with your black friends. Two completely different reactions. And just like how that exists, there also exist characters in that realm where it's like a lot of the times those aren't black characters, those are black actors playing white people. And we can tell the difference. And that has something to do with, by the way, the question of what makes it a black movie. Is the character an actual black person playing a black person? Because
always fitting.
Yeah. Go ahead, Carr.
Well, I think a lot of this ties into the similar issue of, for a long time, you have black people who were locked out of like the major decision-making rooms in Hollywood. If we're sticking with talking about movies, right? It was hard for black directors to be in the room. I mean, Van Peebles had to go to France to make his movies, things like that. And so someone brought up horror movies earlier, and I think that can link into all of this as well. Think about horror movies for a second. You think about, during the 60s, 70s, 80s, all the way back, the black character was the first one to die. But look even further than that. Even to this day, right now, to this day, think about the movies you watch. How often, for instance, do you actually see a black man kiss a white woman? How often does that actually happen? And when it does, how often is it horror movies? No, how often is it horror movies? Okay, Get Out, horror
I was
movie.
about to say,
House of Wax, horror movie.
Night of the Living Dead was crazy because it was not only did it have a black male protagonist, but he slaps the shit out of this white female.
Yeah, knocks the fire out of her mouth. And so when you take that disconnect and you have people, that gets into what he referenced with, it's not really a black character, it's a black person playing a white character. That's how you had the issue of, for a sizable portion of my lifetime, 20 years, having 3 or 4 black male actors in all of Hollywood that regularly got consistent roles in big budget pictures that weren't explicitly written for black actors. Will Smith was one of them, Denzel Washington, Morgan Freeman, and Samuel L. Jackson. Right, these were the only 4 that consistently got these roles, and on multiple occasions, Will Smith movies nearly didn't get made, nearly had production companies pull out because the insistence on casting him. Wild Wild West and Independence Day, they initially did not even want to put him in Independence Day, and they were about to can the whole project because both of those roles were written for white actors. Hancock was written for a white actor.
White actor, yes, thank you.
I'd like to ask something really quickly. Somebody in chat asked, and I feel like I have an idea, but it seems important. What do you mean by black character? You say black actor playing a white character. What do you mean by that?
What is Zendaya doing in Dune?
Or Spider-Man, for that matter.
Anyone else could have played that. There's nothing special about having the black person there besides the fact that I could be like, ooh, it's Zendaya. But there's nothing black about like their experience. And unfortunately, like even in a normal day for me, there's still things that I do within a day that will still be black. The fact that I have to spend so fucking long trying to figure out what's happening on my head is a black experience. Even if I'm not going around and speaking in AAVE, I'm still just participating in what it means to be a black person every day. Whereas like a lot of times when you end up casting, like a lot of the people that do get casted in Hollywood romantic roles as black women, which are just, just the person that you're like, I'm okay if my son brought one of you home. You're close enough kind of women that get casted for these roles. And you're not doing anything particularly black. Like no one ever mentions like, oh, while you're on your way there, like, are you sure your parents are going to like me? That's a very black thing that I would be asking. Am I going to be okay here? They don't ask that. They're not black characters. They're just black people playing the role.
Wait, hold on really quickly. Yeah, honey, sorry. I saw you with your hand up.
I think a perfect example that I can even give for this, or just how to relate to it, is when you've ever read, I don't know if anyone's ever been on Wattpad, and you had those stories that say YN, and you know very damn well when they say caressing her silky, soft, long hair, it was not talking about any black person. I feel like that's the perfect way to describe it. I was inserting my name into these stories, and I knew damn well it had nothing to do with me because no one's getting their fingers through my 4C. So when you see it like that's how I see it. A black character having to play a black actor having to play a white character. It's just really as simple as that. Having to insert yourself into situations that you will kind of never ever see yourself in, but simply just playing it. Yeah.
I'm gonna throw out the
stories.
craziest, easiest one right there. I'm gonna go with Hitch. You can replace Will Smith with literally anybody, and it plays out the same way.
Wasn't that also Eva Mendes too?
Yeah, no, there we go.
She's the racially ambiguous romantic interest whenever a black man's involved. Rosario Dawson or Eva Mendes usually.
Right, and why is that? That's what we mean by black character. You can tell when the thought process of the character within the movie. You can tell. You know what? We can even take it away from movies and TV shows. You can even put it in music. You can't have somebody like going, hey, well, matter of fact, we make jokes about this all the time. Hey, we're selling drugs. We're making movies. We're doing gang shit. It don't sound right. Why doesn't it sound right? Because it don't belong to what you're like the words you echo. So when you're given a go ahead.
Oh no, I agree. I just and I understand what you guys are saying. To this though, I feel we find the root of a problem, right? Because earlier it was brought up that it seems to be an issue that middle class or upper class black people have difficulty relating to black cultural experiences, which are heavily tied to poverty or the hood or whatever. And down here, there's a perceived, and I agree with what you're saying, inauthenticity of black characters who don't conform to those elements of black culture. So it seems like there's a reciprocal pattern where everything outside of this set of experiences is inauthentic, and the inauthenticity causes people who aren't a part of the initial experiences to feel distanced. And of course, this can cause issues. Now, all of the logic that leads to what you're saying here, I understand and agree with. What you're saying about like Hitch, for example, there's a noticeable difference between black characters in movies written to appeal to a white audience and black characters in black-made movies that don't care as much whether or not, I'm going to sit there and like it. And that's an appreciable difference. But how on earth do you reconcile that? Like what is the unifying force?
Welcome to the black experience.
I want to push back on what you're saying just a little bit. I want to say that it's not reciprocal because it's two different things. It's both that that the black people in those shows are being inauthentic, but their authenticity is not based on them having some stereotypical cultural, like quote unquote hood things or wherever the spotlight is on. The thing that's actually missing is you're not writing from the position of the oppressed. Like we've done these panels at this point so many times that at every panel, all of us note microaggressions that we've all shared the experience of. We all note similar experiences. We all have similar thinking patterns and patterns of being in white spaces that is obvious to us. I'll give you an example, actually. First of all, if you want to see what it looks like for a black person to not be black, go to our Black People Twitter. Exclusively white guys whiting black people Twitter, and it's obvious. It's obvious to everyone.
Also, like Hotep Jesus used to be run by a white guy.
Yeah, it's obvious. Or go to our women, men writing women, right? And it's always like talking about the bounce of their breast and as they sensually put on it's so obviously written by a man. And it's the same way with black media, right? It's so obvious that you've never had to question who you're dating, question their family, as Kat pointed out. It's so obvious that you've never had to both be had to code switch into the group of white people who had some kind of control over your destiny just to code switch back to another group of black people who would disapprove of the first code switch. It's so obvious to us that when you're looking, like, for example, you're walking down a road, you know how many times I've seen movies that are based in the South with a black person and there'll be a Confederate flag present, as is normal in Florida, and the black person doesn't look at it and go, okay guys, I don't know if I should walk down here. Literally every single one of us says that. And when you don't have those things represented in media, it's like alarm bells. It's like people of the corn, we realize you're not one of us and we start screaming at you. You know what I want to? Oh, well, go ahead. Everybody else, go ahead before I ask a
I
question.
was just about to say really quick. I think it's that no matter what part of the diaspora you are, like when you're in America, you have varying degrees of like proximity to white supremacy and the effects of white supremacy, and you might have very little, right? Like a LeBron or someone like that, or a Candace Owens or whoever, or you might have a lot, like if you were from the hood or whatever. But the common thing is that all of us are at the very least, even if people like Candace Owens won't admit it publicly, even though she won a lawsuit based on this type of shit. We're all at the very least cognizant of white supremacy, and clueless black people are fucking dangerous. So I think that we are like, it's not even a conscious thing. It's just something that we're clued into because it's literally survival tactics. Shit like what Aston was saying. Oh, there's Confederate flags here. I'm out. Peace. See you guys later. You know what I mean? But like that's the type of shit where if you're operating from, I'll just call it the white gaze, it's stuff that you might not even think about. You know what I mean?
Kat, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I think there's even things that like come into place, like as even if you're living obscenely just averagely middle class, like the fact that my mom comes home and talks about like, oh, this girl got on a promotion, she only has a high school degree, I've been here for 10 years, no one's going to promote my ass. That's something that still happens as a middle class person. There's situations of even if you're in the middle class, how are none of these people getting pulled over by the cops? Like no one ever gets pulled over by the cops. Like this happens all the time, especially if you're a black guy. But once again, just white. They're writing it like for white characters, but make them melanated. Or why no one's ever at the pharmacy trying to buy their hair products, and their hair products for some reason need to be unlocked, but everybody else's are outside. These are just like things that happen. But why does everybody wake up with perfect hair? Everyone knows that black people don't wake up with perfect hair. What the f is this? Like these are, it just doesn't happen. It's yeah.
You know what another one is, and this is a really bad one. The one where it's like the black friend amongst white friends, and none of them have all the microaggressions that your white friends have towards you. Like none of them like do the thing where they have to say a black phrase and they have to like stare you in the eye, like when they say dog. Like they'll be like, "What's up, dog?" Like right at your face, like to make sure that you understand that they're using your language. Like they take out all those microaggressions, and it's so obvious that I'm like, you guys, this isn't a real group of friends. Like that's not a real black person in that group. That's not how they treat them. And it's really like red flags to everyone when we see it,
May I ask one more thing? But I'm the panel host. Yes, I will. Okay, yeah. So you said welcome to the black experience. I totally get that, because it seems like there are so many parallel elements of white culture. Obviously, to compare like white culture with black culture, it's stupid, but we're with in the broadest sense, like in terms of like experiences which relate to poverty. You have like rent tier, I spend 80% of my paycheck on a Manhattan apartment, queer, like lower class, gay, white culture. You have redneck culture, and obviously white people dominate upper class culture. That's almost uncontested. It seems like no matter what your background, if you're white, there's a group of people that makes media that you will be able to consume and feel like you belong. And it seems like it's really difficult to find that. If like say like upper class black people or whatever, some black people, maybe they grew up or mixed race black people. I know they complain about this often, where it feels like there's this incompatibility between different elements of their lived experience, where they get, on one hand, they feel like some elements of black culture aren't fully representative. And on the other hand, it's like a sellout type thing. If it's, the white culture adjacent to whatever community they grew up in. Obviously, there's no I can't imagine anyone can solve that problem right away. But I guess as a hypothetical, because I'm really curious how you all would approach it, if you were a black person who grew up in very privileged circumstances, what could you do to see yourself reflected in culture and to understand the culture that you're not reflected in? If you can imagine that, because that seems to me like an incredibly difficult task. Oh, well, maybe I'm an idiot. Hit me.
Oh, sorry. No. It's definitely a difficult question, but it's not something like if you're thinking about it like that and you're like trying to seek it out, then it can be difficult. But I immediately just thought of John Stewart, Green Lantern. His origin was DC. They wanted black characters at the time, but they wanted him. They wanted people to come from poverty and stuff. Creator said, nope, he's going to have a master's degree in engineering. That's why when you see his constructs all have bolts and nuts and gears and stuff like that. And they wanted to name him Jefferson or something like that. They said, nope, his last name is going to be Stewart. He's not going to have anything to do with slavery. He's going to come from the middle class, and that's going to be his background. But at the same time, he's still black. So he still has experiences of, you know, when the police first see him, they see a big, strong black man glowing green, shooting missiles and airplanes and shit at people. They start spraying him. You know what I mean? And there's little nods like that you have, that you might not necessarily have a frame of reference for. But once you become slowly aware of white supremacy and how insidious it is, you start to notice your friends' microaggressions. You start to notice that the police, that feeling of safety you had because the police were always around you in your neighborhood, is actually because they were watching you, right? And we talked about this in one of the other panels where, like, there's a moment that you have where you're like, holy shit, everyone is fucking racist.
So the relationship is coming to empathize with the fact that your experience is distinct to the vast majority of Black Americans, like an understanding that your difference is born out of not experiencing the shit they have to go through, kind of. Right.
It's kind of like, yeah, where it's like you, and admittedly myself, I've talked about this before, where like I had some internalized white supremacy and shit, where you want to be white, you want to stand out from the other Black people, or at least what you think is the other Black people, when you come from a kind of well-off setting where the only Black people you really interact with are your family members, who are kind of maybe in various degrees of poverty or middle class, but you don't see them often, right? So your only like mental capacity of white people is like rappers, athletes, and, you know, trappers. And so you're like, I'm going to be different. I want to be a scientist, or I want to be an artist or whatever. And when you find a character that kind of resonates with you, at first it wasn't always John Stewart. Like I said, it was Night Thrasher for me because he was the hacker. You relate to them just off of that experience. And then if the writer is good, if it's not a person writing if it's a person that's actually writing a Black character and not a person doing things while Black, then you have other parallel experiences that you can look to, like, damn, the police really look at him like this, even though he's a hero, right? Like Blue Marvel's story. I didn't grow up with Blue Marvel, but his story is an excellent, like, example of JFK. It was like, look, you were a masked hero before, but your mask came off in the last fight, and it's, 1964, and people can't deal with a Black Superman, so you got to go to the moon or something. Like that type of stuff. Like once you read those things along with whatever else, it definitely sparks something in your mind that's like, maybe there is no specific, like, uniquely, or rather, how can I put this? Maybe my Blackness is not defined solely by my proximity to the hood or to poverty or having come from chattel slavery or whatever. Maybe Blackness is literally just how I survive white supremacy. You know what I mean?
So what I wanted to say, because I like what Vaush did there, he wanted to be pragmatic and look for solutions, which is something that I think is kind of difficult, because I think we're all identifying that there's kind of a problem, kind of a separation, that spotlight that I was talking about earlier kind of has too narrow a focus, if you would. And I think the solution really lies in contact theory. This is something I learned about from a really, really based creator named Psychosocialist, who did how socialism can fix prejudice, right? And he talks about contact theory, and he talks about how when different groups are meeting on equal terms and are working towards similar goals, we start losing prejudice for them. We start losing the fear of the other, right? And how can we apply that kind of like in film? I think one of the biggest issues in film, and stop me if you guys haven't noticed this, but they only exist in one world. They're either in the white world or they're in our world. And there's no, like, it's either I'm a white family, white group with a black friend who's visiting our world, or I'm the white person that is the one white person visiting their world. There isn't an interplay of those worlds. It's much kind of like if you ever go to New York, right? When you go to New York, you can like point down a street and say all the Jewish people live there, all the Chinese people live there, even though there's no physical law or policy restricting where these people move. We still have an incredibly segregated city in New York, and the same exists in kind of how we interact with each other. There isn't films where we're moving from the white world to back to the black world to the Asian world and always moving intersplicing them. And I think that's where the issue is. Like, I was actually talking, how we actually came up with this panel, Vaush, was I had actually called you out a little bit, where I think that you're an incredible ally, and I think you say you represent the issues fantastically. But what we need to normalize is you need to have a black friend, much like you have like white friends, much like you have trans friends, much like you have LGBTQ friends who commonly come on your show and talk, and you interact heavily with them. They're just like, having another person that was black would be something that could help normalize relations in that way. And the same thing exists in film. If we can normalize these groups, not like actually truly interacting at like an equal term, going to a black family, seeing how they live their lives, making that a Tuesday and making Wednesday the white family. I don't know, but it's got to be something along those lines, because I think that unfortunately, when you really look into how our films work and how our culture work, it's still so highly segregated. And I think that's what we can do to get past it.
I'm sorry, I know Honey has to speak because you haven't spoken in a while. The two films that, and it's easy to do this with films because you have a representation of somebody writing for somebody, so the layers are there. I think with music and TV, movies and TV, I think it's easier to just see the dynamic than when we go to music and books and literature. They all kind of play on these, but there are a lot more controlled spaces. There are still the blocks that you have to get past in order to get within those spaces, and that's a whole conversation on how white people kind of run the publishing industry and this, that, and the other. But Romeo Must Die. And yeah,
that movie slapped.
Yeah, no, good movie. No. That's a classic. We ain't shitting on no films here. But Romeo Must Die and Rush Hour. There's where you have the interactions, and the only bond that they have is comedy. Until they get to a point where it's like, my daddy got pulled over. My daddy was doing a traffic stop, and he got shot by some punk kid who ain't won no ticket. Like, even there, where you have the intermixing of communities, it's made to be played off as a joke, or it's made to be played off as these two are going to be the classic dynamic duo. We could even go further and say Lethal Weapon. You had the black family and Martin. He just said it. Riggs. I'm going into the black house, but for some reason Riggs doesn't have a family. He's just got the dog. Wife was killed. Like, they killed off his family quick. Why is that? Because we don't want these two. We can't handle that dynamic. We don't know how to write for those characters. We could make the entire environment. And now Lethal Weapon, for me personally, is a good movie, but I understand people in like cop films don't work. It's okay. I understand that. I grew up on that. But even there are clear examples that are still existing to this day. Hollywood just hasn't done it. And we could talk about money, financial barriers, economic barriers, the fact that some people don't want to be writers, some people don't want to be actors. There is just they just haven't done it yet. And they choose that actively. Whoever is and I don't want to name names because I have NDAs on that. Can't do that, right? But there are some people who make that specific choice very blanketly and clearly to everyone on set. At The Walking Dead, there was the huge conversation about Tyler James Williams. Why did he get all this beautiful character arc to get killed off in 2 episodes? And he himself came out and said, they didn't give me a reason beyond I was just the outside character that didn't work for anything. And he was really upset because, wow, you guys systemically killed off all the black characters except for one. And then that one became entranced and in a relationship with the main white character. Like it's everywhere. So for a solution, it is just the opening and normalization that these cultures can coexist. I can share my experience and write a story that can have the open-endedness to allow other groups to come in while still being authentic to me. Our problem right now is that everybody writes for the money. Everybody writes for the hardest hitting. I gotta get to the blockbuster. I gotta sell the most tickets. And sadly enough, when you get to a trend like that, you can only play around with the barriers so much before you're afraid of losing money. And then studios don't want to donate. Nobody wants to rent to you. You lose the contract. There's just so many layers to why they don't open up that experience. And now that we're in 2022, I'm going to do the famous fucking thing. We have no choice but to open up that experience because it's amazing. Like I taught table tennis in my Chinese community. You are in New York City. You know Essex. You know, like down there wasn't a barrier between me and the parents that I met of my students. They liked me. I wasn't like in a socially acceptable black person. They just viewed me as, you're a person that comes from a community coming to teach us the thing. Let's teach you some things. I went to their graduations. I've gone to birthday parties. And that involvement of teaching me their culture while I'm allowed to exist within my own mainframe, it adds on to the experience. Right now, we write singularly for each experience and they can never interact. If they interact, it'd be crazy, but directors don't know how to handle that shit, or they don't want to, I should say.
Honey, you wanted to speak?
I guess just going off of that, it's reminding me, just hearing y'all talk, it's reminding me of wanting the talk of POC solidarity with Black people. Like, I don't know why, but this is like what's coming up in my head in regards, like, as you mentioned with the segregation, like it's not like there's laws saying that, okay, we don't interact with them, we don't interact, whatever, and Jewish people live here, and then Asians, I'm from New York, so Asians live in Flushing, Black people live in Brooklyn, and you have the Puerto Ricans and the Dominicans in the Bronx. There's no law ever saying that. So hearing talk, it's just reminding me of the fact that the reason why I feel like also it could be because everyone wants to make money in the films, and definitely that can be a huge reason. But I feel like it's also there's no want to learn about also other cultures. So if I the privilege of saying I can learn about the Black experience and I have the Hispanic experience, but I can tell you there are probably multiple people who don't feel the need to be like, I don't want to interact with these other groups because I don't relate to them off the bat. I don't need to
One
write
second.
a story that involves them.
Oh, honey, your mic's cutting out a little bit. Could you bring the phone a little bit closer to you? I don't know if it's a phone, laptop, something.
Is this better?
Yeah.
I have it in pod.
Yeah, I think that'll be better.
Okay. So yeah, essentially I'm just saying that in order to write the experience, of course, you have to be able to know the experience. And like you said, you were very privileged to have that experience of the Asian community there where you were teaching, just see you as a person and you have them, I guess, love you and invite you to these places. But a majority of the fact is for a lot of other Asian communities or other Asian families, that's not going to happen.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
they would refuse to even want to have that experience. And you can walk through Flushing right now and they look at you, oh my God, what are they doing here? Like, what? A New Yorker, what are you talking about? But it's just, they don't, I wouldn't say it's just, it could be the money, but it's also, they just don't want to see that. They don't want to see that solidarity because they've been taught that the solidarity would hurt us at the end, or they've been taught that it's not worth the solidarity.
Right.
You know what it might actually be? It might actually be the code switching. It might be that from years of actually like suppressing our ethnic heritages in the presence of whiteness, which is kind of the all-encompassing, because we've all said this in other panels, there's a lot of Black times we don't bring up our Blackness in public spaces, right? Because we're trying to fit in a professional setting, in an academic setting or something like that. And maybe that lack of understanding each other's cultures happens because we're doing that simultaneously adjacent to these other cultures, like an intersectional thing. And because
power level.
Yeah, everybody kind of because I mean, this is just the truth. The more professional or academic that we're supposed to be, the more whitewashed our culture is supposed to be. The less our culture is something that we can actually bring, or our perspectives is something that we can bring into things. Like, it's frustrating, but maybe that has something to do with it. No,
Like
we
if
should
there was
name
a
our favorite
culture
movies.
day.
By the way, we should be naming movies. Why aren't we doing that?
I don't know. Like I was gonna put this out there. There was like if we were able to have a culture day every single day. Like, you know, in school we had culture day and everyone for some reason was like, oh my God, your culture is so cool, your culture. If we were able to do that in America every single day, I'm pretty sure, not saying it would be kumbaya, but it would be a little more accepting. But
Yeah, it's like neutral spaces. It's like in order to be colorblind, they actually made everything white, and so all the neutral spaces are just white, and they don't put other multiple cultures in those spaces, like places like schools or government or places like that. And maybe that has to do with that suppression that we're talking about. Does that make sense?
Can I ask about that actually?
Yeah.
With regards to, so you said the default made white, you know, we're going to be inclusive by making everyone white, even black people. That makes a lot of sense. In terms of movies people like, I'm not a big movie guy. I wish I had more examples to pull from, but in my experience, and I'm stereotyping here because I'm making it, you know, an extrapolation from personal. Yeah. I notice a lot of black people, the ones I talk to, seem to like Rush Hour. Seems to be a film they like, gets along, good film. I like that film, great film. Now, Django Unchained, very different film. Mostly noticed it's white people crowing about this online. And from what you guys are saying, and I like Django, I like both films. From what you guys are saying, I feel like there's an authenticity in Rush Hour which both acknowledges Will's blackness, you know, and moves forward with it in a way which feels accepting and fairly progressive. You know, okay, well, different cultural backgrounds make people act differently, and that's fine. Great, great. Now go find aliens or whatever, you know. But in Django, obviously context is different, you know, 150 years ago, um, with the slavery business and everything, different like cultural pretexts, but
Easy to forget.
yeah.
Yeah. I
Anyway, I only wanted to say, with regards to the cultural pretext back then, obviously there are some differences, but in terms of how the movie is perceived by people, it seems like, even though Django is a badass in the movie, I mean, obviously, like objectively, it's hard to imagine, not. Even though that's the case, it seems like the badassery is a form of almost white apologia, where the reason white people are enjoy it is because, like, well, I agree with the black slave who gets to kill all the evil racist white people, you know. By agreeing with them, you know, my reciprocal moral rightness is demonstrated. You know, I'm on the right side of this. And it's not so much about that interplay or about moving forward. It's about a proxy for retributive violence. Does that make any sense?
It's appropriation porn. It's like appropriation porn power fantasy, right? Like, it's white people get to be the black person, which nobody cares. Like, we're black people every day, so there's no real strength in that, and it's essentially a white person power fantasy. Like, this is what white people fantasize that they think we want. They think we want stories of revenge where we murder all the white folks. It like plays into a really a lot of stereotypes about the ideas of what our perception of liberation means.
Yeah,
And
a lot of us didn't do that shit also. Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, a lot of us also didn't do that shit because we all know what happened to Django probably like 30 minutes after the cameras cut off. If he was a real person, like, he was a tragic hero. in every sense of the word.
Yeah. I think that you raised some good examples. Rush Hour did well in my circles. Django Unchained was pretty popular in the black community too, and as are most Tarantino films. But what I'd see is you used Rush Hour as an example with Chris Tucker. I think you said Will, but with Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan earlier. I think Paradigm had mentioned Romeo Must Die. I think that's actually a better example of a movie. Now, first of all, this is a hard R-rated movie, but that's an example of a movie that actually shows the two different communities at their core dealing with community shit. You have the inner city Chinese community dealing with their, triad gang violence, and you have the Black community dealing with, the violence brought about by people dealing drugs and prostituting and things like that. And you have that clash where you have a Black female protagonist and a white Chinese protagonist in that movie. And they actually go into their cultures and show you how they clash and where they can find that common ground. Not to say Rush Hour is a bad movie. It's one of my favorites of all time. But I think they bridge that gap a little bit more with comedy. And I don't think they go as far as they could to actually show you the experience of people, the average person living in those cultures. Whereas Romeo Must Die is a very real, very visceral movie. You
Jet Li's
feel
goated. Just
yeah. You feel like you're on the streets from scene one of that movie. It opens in a Black nightclub, and it feels like a Black nightclub, and it starts with some of that interracial antagonism. There's a fight on the dance floor between a Chinese guy and a few Black guys, and then I think DMX unloads a fucking submachine gun and says, "If your ass ain't black, get out."
As one does.
Anthony Anderson calls. Doesn't he refer to Jet Li's dim sum?
Hand
the whole movie?
Yes.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say that at least for me, part of what stops me from being super into Django as much as I could is a lot of times movies seem like a way that like Tarantino's like, I've been waiting to say the N-word all year, and then he gets to say it like in his movies, may it be Pulp Fiction or Django, and it's like, you did it. You did it, Quentin.
Sorry. Oh, no, I was just saying, he kind of did the same thing in Inglourious Bastards, too, didn't he? Because in that movie, you had the Bear Jew when they were going around killing Nazis, but there's nothing of Jewish culture in the movie. It's just, the Jewish guys killing the Nazis. And hey, you know what? Great. But that's kind of the same thing, isn't it? A little bit, right? White people getting to feel good to morally align themselves with the proxied revenge fantasy. And that's different, I think. Like, that's not the same as, like, if you were watching as a Jewish person or as a Black person in that type of narrative, that doesn't feel the same, right?
Yeah, but even more specifically, it seems like for some reason he writes himself into movies specifically so he gets to say the N-word. Like in Pulp Fiction, he gets to say the N-word like 4 times, and you're like, is this done? Like, are you done soon? And then also, I guess, at least in my household, they didn't really enjoy the mixture of the different types of music. Like, they were just like, is this a timepiece? Why is there music that's like so mixed in here? I didn't really, that didn't particularly bother me.
You didn't like Rick Ross and the Slave?
Yeah, my parents, well, as soon as Rick Ross came in, they were like, yo, what the f is this? I'm turning this off. And then I think, I particularly don't like Black damsel in distress characters. So Broomhilda just like generally kind of irritated me because she's just like, oh, my hero. Like, I don't know. I can do without Black women that don't know how to defend themselves or can't help themselves.
Especially because, like, Harriet Tubman.
Can we also point out that I think Quentin Tarantino dropped out of high school, so he's literally like a high school edgelord. Like, I love him and I love Tarantino movies, but he's an edgelord. That's
100% he is. 100%.
He's a fucking creep. I like his movies, but he's a huge fucking weirdo.
I was gonna say, like, his worst movie, Death Proof, like, is supposed to be like a female revenge movie, and the movie focuses more on Kurt Russell than it does the women, that are supposed to be the protagonist.
Yeah, and then I guess, just all that together, including the fact that, like, most of his audience are just, like, a bunch of college boys with Reservoir Dogs, like, posters on their wall. It just doesn't really, like, I think it's just hard to kind of, like, mix those type of audiences, like, the ones that are, like, quoting, like, Pulp Fiction all the time, and then, people that are actually there to get some type of historical, like, a little bit of a revenge movie, but also, like, yay, representation movie, so... Yeah, I think it probably, if it was directed by somebody else, like, I think that's why 12 Years a Slave also is a bit of like a Black trauma bait movie, but at least it probably had a higher percentage of a Black audience. I think basically it's like, I think Django's kind of like the same type of a mixture of audiences as like Hamilton. Like, all the whites ran out to Hamilton, like, oh my god, they can sing now. That's crazy.
Moonlight was pretty good.
Movie.
I liked Moonlight.
We need an icon movie. The comic book character icon.
Yeah, we need to talk about the rapping slave owner play. I feel that needs to be addressed.
I just listened to all of Hamilton 2 days ago. I'm actually completely ready for this. For the first time, I mean, I hadn't listened to it. I'm trying to make myself gayer, so I listened to all of Hamilton.
You're doing great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Historical revision is nothing new, and it's been prevalent in musical theater for a long time. I mean, Oklahoma is an old as shit play, but you're gonna first of all, it's okay. You're going to completely rewrite the history of Alexander Hamilton, who was an absolute shitlord. Okay, you're going to flip the script and make it a black cast and feature heavily, AAVE and feature black dance and feature hip hop and things like that. Okay. And you're going to center it around people who were actually white slave owners. I understand from a technical standpoint that the music is decent. I love musicals. I love show tunes. I spent ungodly money going to see Wicked last year. So I get it. But at the same time, does it have to be Alexander Hamilton, though? Like, Lin-Manuel Miranda could have made a singing movie about Frederick Douglass or Crispus Attucks or
Mortal
some
Technique
shit.
should have bullied him harder.
Yeah, no, everyone should bully his ass. And how did anybody else, I guess, resonate with that particular work? It rubbed me the wrong way.
You don't get it. Like, he was born in the Caribbean. He's an immigrant. He's just like us.
Yes.
Right, like, I mean, when Hamilton first came out,
wait, honey?
I guess I can say, it really around here. So my little sister, we're both like theater kids, musicals, did all the stuff. So when Hamilton first came out, I was like, okay, sure, it's whatever. But witnessing a little black girl, they took it as it was the first time that she actually got into history. And Hamilton still to this day, because it was really using a lot of lesson plans, a way to relate to the black community, which, like you said, mentioned the use of AAVE, the black dancing. It was a way that they used it to relate to little black kids who didn't like history. So it was the first time that I actually saw her want to pick up a history book and search up her things about Alexander Hamilton. Of course, she gets, does her own research, and she sees it's not all rainbows and he wasn't actually singing. And then it's also, you have the other part of, because of that play, it was so hard for people to separate Alexander Hamilton was a white man who owned slaves to Alexander Hamilton is a Spanish guy who sings and is happy. So when that's what I was witnessing with Hamilton, you have to remember, like, these are white slave owners, not Aaron Burr was not a black man. And even sometimes I would forget, like, Aaron Burr.
That we know.
Like, that's a white. Yeah, that we know. So when that came out, it wasn't, I want to say it was the worst thing ever. It's very catchy. I have like 2 songs on my phone, I will admit. But it also paved the way for having to separate theater from reality. And that's what a problem with theater is. When you try to insert history into theater, a lot of it will get switched and flipped to for the white gaze, you can say, because who's attending these Broadway theaters? It's not black people, I tell you that much. Hamilton tickets were running for $800, $1,000.
And because of that, my parents didn't even know that it was about didn't even know black people were in it. I asked my mom if she wanted to watch it, and she's like, I don't want to watch that white shit. And I was like, no, it's literally all black people.
They should have called it Black Hamilton. Really,
exactly. $1,000 for front row tickets. And then the only way I was able to see it was through illegal footage, bootleg, like you get from the laundromat that you would sometimes get. It was literally, it's just that, putting history into theater and then trying to put the representation, which was great. You got more characters and whatnot, more actors and more actresses. But then again, it's still white. It's still for white people, for the white gaze. So they can look at it and be like, oh my God, these black and people of color representing my racist history. We love to see it. And they don't feel bad about it because it's like I'm supporting it.
Aston?
Yeah, because this is the thing. This is a whole genre of media that's adjacent to black media, and I'll call it like the white guilt media, right? Like,
Ooh.
stop me if you've heard this before, other Black folk. Oh my God. I just wanted to tell you, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Like one time when I was in 5th grade, my best friend was named Shaniqua, and I loved her hair, and I thought it was beautiful, but everybody else made fun of it. So I made fun of it, and I've always felt so bad. Tell me, you've heard this before, like 1,000 times.
I did security at a bar. Trust
I'm gonna
me.
mute myself.
Yeah.
In the movement, we call them the tourists because they come with every college season. We get that just round of college kids that want to do activism, and they're just in it for, kind of like the trauma porn. They kind of want to feel something, and it's not bad. They're well-meaning, but white privilege, and white supremacy has an effect on white people as well. It oftentimes makes them super ignorant. And one of the ways it's affecting media, the way that we're talking about right now, when we try to intermix it with history, white supremacy erased our history. I grew up in a town like where I am right now in Orlando is 20 minutes from the Ocoee massacre. No one told me about this until I was 30. Like, it's insane to me the amount of history that continuously gets erased. So you want to know the difference between other minorities and the LGBTQ and all of them and us? Everybody gets to have a history but us. Everybody has a time they can hearken to, a culture that they can hark back to. All we have is like the spotlight culture that gets put on us for 5 minutes, and sometimes it highlights gang culture, and sometimes it highlights, it highlights
the term
the
you're looking for
conflict.
is recuperation. Recuperation media is what it is.
I have a question, but go ahead, Vaush. I'm sorry.
Oh, I just wanted to say, other issues aside, I thought it was really odd how in Hamilton, most everyone's black. The king, George, yes, is white, which seems to me to be kind of odd because it feels like it's trying to parallel. Yeah, like it's trying to parallel America's revolution and break away from England in a way like similar to like black people breaking free of slavery, because there's an innate parallel. I mean, the decision to make him white, it seems like they're trying to at least lightly associate the freedom from oppression that Americans fought for with what happened with slavery, which in a play that already barely touches on slavery at all seems like, you know what I mean? It seems to like saying, well, before the revolution, Americans were basically the slaves of England. So you know what I mean? That just
think about this thing.
Well, that's the parallel that I'm trying to draw. Oftentimes the people that create that type of media are the apologetic types that only come around, that they're the ones. Matter of fact, I know because I've watched your stuff, the stuff that you cover when you see the CRT, the weird teacher that takes it too far. It's that teacher writing this play. It's that teacher or that person that's making whiteness weird or making people apologize for whiteness. They get in control of a camera, and then suddenly you have a black character against the world story again and again and again. And that's the sort of thing, and that's the sort of issue that we're talking about. When people don't actually let us be in control of our narrative, they're still trying to tell our narrative for us.
So here's an interesting question that plays off of that I want to get you guys feel for. So you were talking about how we're kind of the only subset of the proletariat that don't really get to have a history because it was taken from us. Do you think that's why the black media, like that term, is so amorphous, is because we're low-key making this shit up as we go?
What do you mean?
Like, say for example, like Scottish like media, or not Scottish media, but like Scottish culture, right? Or like Italian culture. Any of these things are things that you could draw a direct line through immigration and so on and so forth. Even with things like Chinese culture, even though they had the railroad slaves and stuff like that, like they still have like a cultural history where they can do stuff like, oh, my family are originally from this particular city that was so on and so forth, right? But we don't necessarily have that. So we're literally we're almost like Schrodinger's cat, right? Where we're alive and dead at the same time. So each day is us creating examples of that type of stuff
I get what
we
you're
can look at that
saying.
too.
So, basically, Black history in America, the Black diaspora begins with bondage. It doesn't
Right.
begin, where we came from on the west of the African continent, because that history was gone. It was beaten out of people. I don't know the language my ancestors spoke. I don't know what their names were. I don't know the gods they worshipped, right? I have no fucking clue where they came from. So what you're left with is taking just the culture that was created as a diaspora right here in North America. And that is what we uniquely have to build off of. And unfortunately, that does start with chattel slavery and goes from there. So yeah, there's at least, like you said, okay, so you mentioned different types of media for different minority groups. Italian Americans, yeah, a big immigration push from Italian Americans came later in history, but they still had a connection to the country that they came from. You see this referenced in some of the most popular forms of the media. The Godfather, that literally features a character going to Sicily, right? And you talk about, say, Irish Americans, they can have movies, things like Black Mass and The Irishman and shit like that, which too many Irish mobster movies. It's old hat. Stop making them. But
Where's the Protestant Catholic movies at?
they can trace that back to, there was a famine and a lot of their people left the fucking Emerald Isle. So
and I was going to say, and on top of what you're saying is that's what I was trying to bring it to. Not only is our history start in bondage, but it's erased continuously throughout time because the white supremacy erases the tracks of its racism. You're going to erase the massacres. You're going to erase the purging of our people. You're going to erase the stealing of our culture. So I think that kind of adds to that. No?
It happens in real time. And earlier, when I referenced the example of this weird early aughts focus on Black dance and song movies, what came after that? What preceded and then came after that? You had fucking Bring It On, and then later you had You Got Served, which was a bunch of fucking white people doing hip hop dancing. And then later on, now you have Step It Up, right? And so that example can be extended to all different forms of media, keeping it focused on media. So when we talked earlier about how there's a fatigue that we're feeling now, I think more so than ever with the Black trauma porn, we don't get me wrong, movies like Roots and Glory were well-made movies, but this odd focus Hollywood has on Black suffering is something that people are getting tired of. That's why some people, not everybody, some people really resonated with Harriet because that was a movie about a Black woman just being a stone cold badass. And the focus of the movie was not on the traumatic time of her life. It was on her saving people and murking fools with a sawed-off shotgun.
Yes.
And there could definitely be more films that go down that route. I think people are afraid to make them. People in my chat are saying they want to see films about the Maroons throughout South America.
God, yes.
They want to see Haitian revolt movies. They want to see
this is why I think Icon
Rwandan freedom fighter movies. They want to see based out of Kilgali, shit like that,
or like stage
Black
shows.
Superman.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I would just say really quick because I get really excited. Like Icon, like Black Superman. Like, come on, that would be fucking amazing. But what were you saying, Vaush?
Oh no! First of all, agreed. Second of all, I don't know, stage play on like the Harlem Renaissance seems like an easy layup. I don't like it's it's the Harlem
there were
Renaissance.
Actual Black playwrights then too.
That's
the worst part.
Yeah. Plus, I don't know. Seems like you could do a lot there, and it's worth noting too, even with the Hamilton stuff, right? That ultimately this piece of Black staffed media, at least, is ultimately a veneration of slave owners, right? I mean, like, they're played by Black actors, but it's the founding fathers, right? What two of them didn't have slaves, and I think the two that didn't weren't even in the movie, in the play. So at the end of the day, like maybe you enjoy like the hip hop music or whatever. Great, it's well written music, but a lot of people are going home like, oh wow, the founding fathers really were cool. It's like, well, okay, maybe we delivered them that message in an interesting fashion. I don't know.
It's really all Americans need more of is believing that the founding fathers were holier than thou.
Yeah, and it paints over a lot too. Like George Washington is just uncritically almost uncritically. They mention at one point, Jefferson, Hamilton had slaves. That doesn't come up. Jefferson was bad because he was what, annoying? Like that was the reason why they harped on him. Look, I understand, like, not everything has to, be the harshest condemnation imaginable. You can have fun with it, but it's really odd. Like, that would be the direction you go. Like, we're going to have a black stage play and it's going to sell like gangbusters, and we're going to have it be highly sympathetic to the slave owners. That's,
Well, Vaush, let me ask you this. Are you saying that a system that maybe had similar hierarchical structures to other systems sometimes produces these weird results of mimicking those larger power systems and making weird movies that for some reason don't connect to black people because of those systems? Yeah. I don't know.
Very female drone pilots too. Though I will have to say, okay, wait, actual real question. Would Hamilton have been better or worse where there were one or multiple songs that directly showed slaves and all the slaves were white people getting dragged around? Would that have been better or worse?
It would have been
I'm
good
sorry,
just for the
it's
memes,
just
honestly.
how do you stop yourself from thinking about the Martin Luther King son?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just like
exactly.
The whitest guy, like blonde hair too. I mean, just like, albinos getting dragged around.
It's funny you mentioned that. We're talking about media. Back during like the fucking Hayes Code and Comstock laws, white slavery was prohibited from being shown on media. Now, white slavery is actually a broader term that refers to like the non-chattel but human trafficking of European and exploitation of European laborers and things like that. And that shit for a long time, for decades, was banned from being shown on film. They had no problem displaying depictions of black chattel slavery. They had no problem displaying really, really ugly stereotype depictions of black people, a la Birth of a Nation and things like that. But interracial romance, no. And showing that some of those same powers that be also exploit low-income white laborers, was banned as part of the Hayes Code. It was on their list. It said white slavery could not be depicted. So that's goes into that white supremacy that plays into it, as well as the class structure that says, well, they will recuperate the entirety of their white image in the media that they portray.
If I may I? So this is going to be a little bit of a spin, but I'm just going in this direction because I feel like this is where like my brain is right now. So Vaush, I know that you are somewhat of a fan, or at least I should say you've talked about sort of the reparations conversation and the intricacies on how to do that. I know.
It's been touched on.
But
hey, here's the tanky take: give everyone reparations.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But what I'm relating that to say that it's very scary to talk about a solution to this without saying like you really just got to give people the space and opportunity to be able to create these things, because what ends up happening is that especially, and now I can finally make the segue, especially in music, there is this intrinsic barrier to making a pop song that has to be clear and relatable, and it takes away a lot of the surrounding culture of Black people. And I want to use like The Weeknd as kind of an example.
The Drake
like
is a pretty good example.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. Oh, matter of fact, let's use Drake because that's easier. I feel, because I was gonna like Drake's got a song called Worst Behavior. And like you can really vibe with that. You feel like hunger in his voice, like, yeah, that's this black man rapping. He rapping, he doing his thing. Now it's like, oh, all his songs can be played at any club and everybody will dance to it. I go to weddings and I film weddings, and the primary clients that I get are white people. And it's always the top like hits from Black people that are very if they're not throwing in the Usher and then making it the radio edit, it's like it's Bruno Mars. It's Whitney Houston. I want to dance with somebody. Like, you're not even willing to touch where artists have clearly painted the picture of a struggle in a way that is both catchy and also a story to tell. That gets watered down. Let
me ask you though, do they play WAP at the white weddings?
No, and that's the problem. Like, why not?
Not
Like,
even the
It is
black
a problem.
sexy music. They don't play
like,
WAP.
They only
You
play
see
the
what I
good
mean?
ones, okay? The
Right.
good ones.
And so for a lot of, so that's why I brought up the reparations thing. A lot of black creators who are like us, who are artists who want to say, yo, I can make a catchy beat, I can make a fire ass rap song, but also say something with it. There's a gate limit on that, because then we go all the way back to the beginning of this conversation. The alienation of identifying with what that black person is saying if I don't come from that area. So the majority of the top hits start circling around, damn, that guy got a good voice. This song is a bop. And you're not even really paying attention to what's being said, because when you read the lyrics, it goes in one of two directions. Call out my name, or like, I was in a trap shooting with the gun, and I was like, and when you get to the dynamics of it, yeah, you can find a lot of underground artists doing that. Like I definitely know tons already. But they don't hit that mainstream platform because that message starts to resonate with, well, should I feel bad for what I'm hearing? Should I? They internalize it as an attack on themselves, where, as opposed to like those top hits, they don't think about the race of the person. They don't think about the background of the. Yeah, it's just fun. And for a lot of what we end up talking about, it starts to turn unfun because there is no major representation of what we want to see out of these films, out of this music, out of this black media.
I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
Somebody in my chat just said, y'all better not shit talk Eminem here. And I feel like I'm sorry. I feel like that's so representative.
To be fair, yeah, that's one of them tricky ones there. I gotta give him that. That was the fire one.
Is that chat posing the Eminem question?
No,
Right,
it's,
oh,
I don't want to give them a hard time.
Why
I know.
is it on a black media panel? Someone has to bring up Eminem. I'm like he's
Wait,
good,
hold on.
but
The
why
twist.
does he
They
have to
said
be in the conversation.
They said
Hold on,
I'm
wait.
black, by the way. All right, the twist. Twist. No,
Ask
it's-
him or
Put it back in the deck.
I'm not trying. No, I don't want to. I don't want to drag anyone. I completely get it. Right? Okay. So, like, it seems like a lot of this is just an intrinsic component of cultural differences, like within a community, right? So the stuff that black people make that is the most tolerable to white audiences is the most likely to get made. In the case of Hamilton, literally the whitest topic ever, but we have black actors and hip hop, so I mean, that's good. At least
a little capitalism,
And
I'd
then-
say, because it's the commodification of
Yeah.
Yeah.
Capitalism.
Whatever can be best commodified, But there are things that break this trend sometimes. Obviously, for example, I think the music industry has huge problems with like the commodification of black music, and like white studio heads who like what gets popular. A lot of the shit that gets popular is just popular with like white suburban kids who feel like they're the hoodest hood whoever hooded when they're listening to the and God bless them. But it seems really difficult to overcome because there is that inherent and almost irreconcilable balance, the more authenticity versus the ability to appeal to a broader audience. A question: can you think of any pieces of media that were incredibly authentic, like really did not feel like they backed down on their representation of black culture, but were still able to do surprisingly well in spite of that?
I don't know if it's doing well, but I like Insecure. I've been watching it. I think that's a pretty good piece of media. I think it talks a lot about a lot of different types of intersections, like the issue of like educated Black women not being able to find partners, code switching, working within a predominantly white workplace, having to describe different things. Me and my mods watched it recently, and it was like there's an episode where a character has to bring inner city kids to the beach, and none of them are swimming. And the white coworker's like, "Why aren't any of these kids swimming?" Black coworker just says slavery, and they get really uncomfortable, walk away. Perfect. That's exactly what I would have said. So I think that seems pretty authentic, and I've been enjoying it so far. But also, She's Got a Habit. She's
That
Gotta
one
Have
wasn't
It is a
bad.
very I very much enjoy it as well. I think it like helped me with it was a really good like mixture of a lot of different things I find like talking about black polyamory, black pansexuality, blackness. So I enjoyed that piece of media as well.
A few-
I gotta
doesn't
carry,
Oh, I
I
just-
gotta
I'd
carry
say-
water for the goat. Friday, I think does really well. It's it's a source of memes and it is a comedy, and some could call elements of it problematic, but what I would argue is that it isn't inherently problematic. It's showing maybe that there are some problematic behaviors that people actually engaged in. And so you look at what Friday is at its core. It's a black man that got fired under dubious means, and half the movie is just him hanging out, shooting the shit with his burnout friend, and also getting unwillingly caught up in some street bullshit. So the violence of the movie doesn't take center stage, but it's that reminder that, hey, even in a somewhat nicer Southern California neighborhood, this is something that they still have to interact with. And it is a great black cast. It has great black music, and it shows black people just actually existing in a way that they do, and little elements that you don't notice. Craig's sister sleeping on her hand so that her hair doesn't hit her pillow in the opening scene. Rewatch the movie. That's in the opening scene.
Yes,
Most people don't even
Uh,
notice shit like that.
The one thing I find because I'm always out everywhere complaining about hair, that's like the thing I'm the hair watcher, and I was pretty irritated that the like more attractive person, the one that he's like trying to date, is the one with the perm, and the one that he doesn't want to date anymore is the one with braids. And I was like, why are we putting the girl with perm on a pedestal? It's okay to have braids.
I can vouch for this. We were literally watching this in Discord, and the girl with the braids walked by, and she's like, "Why isn't she getting all the attention right now? Look at her hair. Look at her hair."
Her hair was snatched. I was so confused.
So then you get into the internalized issues and things like good hair and what was going on in the early and mid 90s, because I was alive for that shit. It was very real. It's unfortunate and it's not right, but it is what was presented in the media as correct. It was presented as what you had to do to be professional in the workforce. It was look at the hair Craig's mother had, okay, and she was a working professional woman, right? And so they were following off of those internalized Eurocentric beauty standards. It is unfortunate that they play on the aggressive, difficult black woman archetype for his ex versus the other young lady that he got with later in the movie. But this, I think it's also a good example of how the media shifted over the years, and we can see the things we can correct as well as see things that were done really well.
Get Out?
I'd say
probably be a good
well, yeah.
cited
I'm sorry.
as oh no,
I was gonna say Get Out was dope, but yeah, I thought the new Candyman. I don't know if anybody else saw that, but the new Candyman was fucking dope.
I didn't see it, but I think the thing I don't know if I could ever really like Get Out, just because I was being told by like every white lib, like, oh my god, it's gonna change your life, like, oh my god, you're gonna watch it and you're gonna be like blown away. I'm like,
wait, hold on.
Hold
on. White people being annoying is just a consequence of things getting popular. Okay, it could that movie could have cured cancer, and white people still would have found a way to cheapen it with their cringy performative approval.
I was being like run up on, and like people are like, "Yo, you're gonna learn something." And I'm like, "Oh, really?" And then I watch it. I'm like, "Oh."
Wait, to you? You're gonna okay?
Like, no, people at my work were like, "Oh my gosh, like, Kat, you totally need to watch this. Like, it's so crazy. Like, oh my god." And then I watch. I'm like, "Okay, like, yeah, cops bad. Sometimes white family not that nice."
White person just saw Black Panther. They got to run up to the closest black person to tell them.
Wakanda, and I'm like, we ain't friends. Go away.
So I see you guys are familiar with The Tourist too.
They would have voted for Obama a third time if they did.
Lil Nas X?
I wanted to.
Oh, right. Just would you consider him? I think he's cool. Is he not cool?
Who?
Lil Nas X, as an example of a person who got really popular while maintaining authenticity.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Well, I was actually gonna throw out Donald Glover with his series Atlanta, is very authentic while still being very artsy, very expressive in those modes. And if we're gonna go with a hood movie, Friday Got the Lights, but Don't Be a Menace is where it's at.
No. You no. I'm pushing back. I'm doing a debate thing. No, you. First of all, Sweaty, you should have. I was gonna say that, and you took it from me. You.
Yeah, I was about to say, if you were going to challenge me on Don't Be a Menace being the best hood movie, I would have fought that. Like, we would have had a smackdown
I
right
would
here.
say if you want to take it to TV shows, I would say that The Wire actually
yes,
a lot of that shit, because it was at its core, it started a cop show, but then you realize, holy shit, they're literally focusing a whole season on just a black inner city public school, and
The Wire is unironically a documentary of the inner city.
Yeah, it was written by a guy who lived in fucking Baltimore, right? And based off of real people he knew. It was a white guy, right? It was a white guy who lived in Baltimore.
Yeah, it's a white guy who
one of the good ones.
Yeah,
he was one of the good ones.
Token. He's like Vaush. It's like
He's been waiting all stream for us to call him one of the good ones.
No, absolutely, I'm not. Do not put that on me. Do not.
While we're here, I will stay there.
Twitch, right?
No.
Vaush, you're my favorite cracker. Okay.
There we go.
We're not on Twitch, right? I forgot. Yeah.
Okay, listen. Earlier, I mixed up Chris Tucker and Will Smith between Men in Black and Rush Hour. So yeah, that's so. Listen, okay, I have already done a racism, and therefore I am not one of the good ones. Thank you. To be fair, they came out at similar times.
I was gonna say, while we're here, this is some stand-up shit, and thanks again for doing this, Vaush. This is cool.
Yeah, no.
Oh yeah, no.
Flowers given one.
Having more fun.
Flowers given one. I was gonna mention you took my idea. I only thought about Don't Be a Menace because I always think to myself, Loke Dog wasn't able to get a job at that office, but he owned nukes from the USSR. I don't understand where we're not getting that this man made moves. I don't get where we're not getting with that. But I was gonna say, even though it got canceled, I think one of the best representations that really hit home to me for a lot of representation, especially in the LGBTQ community for Black people, was Lovecraft Country. That was one of my first experiences really. Because I had just finished watching what was that movie? It was not the movie, the Amazon series. Come on, Marquise, you're the media guy. You're the guy. Utopia.
Utopia. That was a good movie. Show.
Yeah, exactly. You see what but Lovecraft Country was one of those experiences where I didn't know what to go in. Everybody was talking about it like it's magical and everything. And I was like, okay, but they really honed down on not only exploring time differences, like going through time, but they kept everybody authentically where they belong. There were the white allies, there were the white negatives, there were the Black negatives, there were the Black people hiding their sexuality, there was the intrinsic characters liked each other because they liked each other. There wasn't this forced interaction. The trauma bonded them in a way that was very, very unique to media, and I'd never seen anything like that before, at least delivered in that medium.
The important part of a Lovecraft Country, though, is because we continually get our histories erased, in Lovecraft Country, in the very first episode, they talk about using green books to cross the country because of sundown towns. It's actually the narrative force in the episode. The evil that they're trying to escape is the hands of the white cops that are going to kill them if they catch them, right? And that is actually the driving force. What's interesting about that is, as a Black person, I had to turn around and go to my grandma and go, yo, this real? Yo, you had to do this every time you were
already
talking?
Better than the movie Green Book.
Yeah, this really, you really did this stuff? And she goes, yeah, that's why we used to pack lunch in the morning. We would make sure we had to eat lunch at this time because we had to drive through the night, or we had to stop at this town or that town. And you didn't. And I'm like, holy crap. And it's those moments that are the moments that we're missing in media, that we don't get to have, that all the other cultures get to have. That moment we're like, holy shit, this is what happened.
You're muted.
No,
No, that was on me. I was meant by. So I've been streaming for 11 hours. First of all,
what a Chad!
How dare you?
Sorry, the war stream. God help me. That was a particularly dry protein bar. Okay. So, yeah. Yeah, that one. Expected more moisture there to help. So, all right. I'm accruing a list of movies that I need to watch. That's good. I'm glad I'm learning from this. So it's difficult. It's really, really difficult, I think. In large part because the consequences of bad representation or of underrepresentation, I think, of black culture in media are really, 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 really bad. At least as far as I can tell, from what I've read up on, or from what I understand, like a ton of black culture, at least in terms of the media produced, is like an active and ongoing war against centuries of dehumanization being pushed through every available media channel. You know, which is why, like, for example, you know, maybe Django isn't as good, you know, for this sort of thing, because maybe in terms of the stereotypes lined up, you know, what perceptions white supremacy gives, the idea of a uber badass, super killing, slave killing white slave owners, you know, maybe morally that's good, and it is. But how much does that pull away? Django doesn't have that much of a character in the story, you know, like he's pretty quiet, really.
He's a tragic hero.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me
on a
wrong.
mission.
He's bright, he's cool as shit. I'm not taking away from that, but in terms of his, you know, engagement with what's happening around him, he's borderline a Terminator. And that lack of, you know, pathos, I think, maybe, at least when I think about it, I feel like in terms of my ability to empathize with Django, it's much less than, you know, my ability to empathize in concept with media where there's like even like Blazing Saddles, and that's not even like really like black media, at least I don't think, you know, it's not written by, but the willingness to deal with these problems and to see the humor and the full range of expression, you know. Maybe white people want to see black people when they're Hamilton, or when they're very goofy, funny side characters, or when they're very cool, badass martial arts military guys, but not so often when the whole range of human expression is given there. They can have character, but they have to be pointed. They have to be you know, exaggerated or limited in some way. And this is what I'm saying makes sense. I feel like the full range, it's a fraction. It's always a portion. It's rarely the whole, you know?
The history of black media tends to be, like, as you spoke, the story of the minstrels. So you had blackface and you had minstrels, and this was actually the first form of media that we were on. The first form of media, like literally the first films were of us being minstrels and laughed at. Matter of fact, for the longest time, I mean, as is now should be infamous to everybody, we weren't played by black people. We were played by white people in blackface, like in movies. So there has been, you are correct, when you have to understand, like, media has this crazy effect, right? We have this idea of gender norms and traditional families that really only extend, if you look at the history, only 60 odd years, 70 odd years, but they feel like they've existed forever. And that is a product of media and technology, as media gets these ideas out there faster and faster. So we were caught in the stream of being part of the group that America loved to beat up on while they invented Hollywood. So all of those negative stereotypes get blasted out to the world. So yes, we are in a constant fight for space to not be those archetypal stereotypes that they created for us in times long past. And unfortunately, America has a fetish for black folk. They love our struggle. They love to see us have all these different attributes. They love seeing street people. That's why in the 90s, the people that consumed 90s rap, gangster rap, were white kids in the suburbs. This is, you know, they have always fueled the largest consumer part of the pie of consumption of our media. So that comes with its consequences, as you're kind of stating.
You can't keep doing this to me. I was literally finishing the bite. You can't. Seriously? Okay.
Well,
I have the worst. I have the worst.
Yeah, honey gotta talk.
No, other people were going to talk, not just me.
That shit looks dummy dry. Make sure you get a drink of water. Too.
Yeah, okay, I'm done now. That can't happen again.
Wait, Vaush with no Bev? Oh wait, he got Bev.
I was gonna say that's a violation.
Violation.
This is Black History Month.
Hydro, please.
Hey, can I just get someone to like rephrase the question? There was like a lot.
I'm sorry. I rambled like crazy. What I was getting at was like, do you agree that it seems like when black people are represented in media, there are a lot of black characters in media, but very often, even when they're like really cool or great or funny or friendly, they're just like, they're caricatures. They have like a trait, or they aren't allowed to experience the full range of human emotion. The real drama of the human condition is denied them.
Well, that can just also go back to the white gaze, but I feel like that's because since, you know, media is essentially white, it's because white people don't see us as anything but the other. I think we talk about the otherization of black people. We've always been the other people who were brought from West Africa, the other people who picked cotton and this, the other people who did this, that, and the third. So we will always be seen as a side character because we have always been treated as a side character because we have been taught that black people. Not saying that there aren't any tropes where, you know, you have your sassy Latina friend too, and you have your ghetto black friend, and you have the smart Asian.
Oh, could you put your mic a little closer?
Sorry.
No worries.
Sassy Latina, smart Asian, ratchet black girl, whatever the case may be. But we've always been the other, and we've always been a form of entertainment. Like you mentioned, minstrel shows, and even in the modern day, I think last time I mentioned this, I went to a majority Asian school. There were 7 black people in my graduating class out of 93 primarily Asians.
Oh, one more time.
Cutting out a little.
It's still, you know, I went to a school where 7 graduating black folks, including myself, 93 majority Asian, literally every day, 7 black folks. We were seen as entertainment. We were the side character in what you can say the high school itself was the show. We were the, can I go to you for the N-word pass? Can I go to you? Can you teach me how to twerk? I didn't even have an ass back then. Why are you ass? I didn't know how to twerk either. Can you teach me too? It was things like that. We've always been seen as something other, as something to entertain. But when it came to, I also mentioned this, when it came to their parents coming through, not only were we not only the other, we were just completely subsided and just completely not seen. So it's either we take the entertainment or we take nothing, or we like to see you suffer. That's literally how it's been, unfortunately. And of course, it can be something to try to change that. We've ultimately tried with black media, black movies that we see, black hood movies, and whatever the case may be. But we will always be seen as entertainment because that's what they've, not we, because you unlearned that, but that's what they've been taught to see us as.
Yeah. Oh, that definitely parses with my experience, you know? I've always felt like, I don't know if I've ever seen, and again, this is probably just, I haven't consumed that much media. I watch a lot of anime, okay? This is going to surprise you all, but there's not a lot of great black representation in anime. It's shocking, but in terms of like something that I feel like we don't get a lot of, you know, Breaking Bad, a show with a lot of racial baggage, you know, is still a great show. And it's also maybe one of the best character studies ever. And I don't know if I've ever seen the level of care and attention given to a black character that you see with, you know, with not just with Walter White, honestly, with Jesse or a bunch of characters in that show, because it's very much a character study of a bunch of people. And now people are saying The Wire. I haven't seen The Wire. It's been on my watch list my entire life.
Yeah, definitely.
Watch the fucking Wire.
Wait,
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't seen a Wire, but mostly because I've been
What are you,
told that
racist?
Yes. No. No, I've been told that if I would watch it, that I would end up perhaps having one of those moments where I'm like, I'm still not being represented. Does it surpass that? Like, because I guess I don't really want to watch something that's gonna make me like look around in my neighborhood and be like, you guys are like these people. So
it's an amazing character study, but yeah, you probably wouldn't be represented.
It does have that high level of character study across a variety of characters and a variety of ages of characters, going all the way as far as high school students and, you know, all the way up to grizzled homosexual gangsters, right? But more importantly than that is that it does it very well. Now, yeah, to go off of what Kat said, it's story inspired by events that took place in inner city Baltimore. So largely low-income communities living in dilapidated housing. I don't know how much that connects with your environment or background.
I've actually been to Baltimore, and I have to say that if The Wire, it took me about 8 seconds to see some problems in that city. I have to say, so I feel like they had a lot to work with.
Blue light, the police blue lights at the street corners with surveillance cameras. There's a lot of issues. So
the shot stopper or shot watcher, where there's literally microphones listening for gunshots at all times. The ghetto bird, the spy plane that they got in trouble for using, like. It's a constant surveillance state, on top of the fact that when Sean Suiter got killed, they literally just cordoned off an entire city block while they looked for whoever this killer was. People weren't allowed to leave or enter their homes. Baltimore's kind of wild.
Well, I mean, you're just describing another day in the life with police as an occupying force in our communities.
Definitely. I was gonna add to that because I know like we can talk a lot about this, and sometimes people will get lost. So I like to make y'all know me, y'all already know what I do. If you ever go to Baltimore, there's this area called Light Street, and I know, and at the harbor of Light Street, so it's a really well.
I used to work there.
At the Hyatt, yeah. Well, at least that's where I
at Hyatt.
Yeah. Okay, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. So this is beautiful area. Oh my God, at night they have fireworks. I feel like they almost did that shit every night. If you walk 2 blocks down,
Public housing.
2 blocks, it looks like you went, like you took the wrong turn somewhere and you don't understand how it is. That is what like we mean by authenticity, is that you can literally put the same place within within inches of each other. And somehow it's so massively different. What is the disconnect if the people that you're supposed to be representing are right there? Why does this area? I swear, you gotta Google 300 Light Street. Like, you gotta see this.
That was part of the reason why I quit that job, is because COVID happened, and the hotel shut down, then they opened back up, and the rates were super low. And it was already kind of, because like you're saying, half a mile from this hotel where all the tourists come through is public housing. And there's a pool there. So the kids would sometimes rent out rooms so they could use the pool, but the pool was closed. So like the way that they treated the tourists and football players and so on and so forth that would come through with money versus how they treated literally high school kids from around the way, it was like, nah, I can't do this.
So I wanted to say that as far as the character study thing is concerned, I think a lot of it, again, kind of comes back to the intrinsic connection between capitalism and racism. You have to remember, again, we talked about how characters oftentimes miss a Black perspective. Well, where does that come from? Well, it comes from a lack of Black writers and a lack of Black directors. Why does that happen? Well, directing as a job is a job. You have to go out and find financing. And so your proximity to capital kind of determines the level of financing you're going to get. Normally, Black directors are relegated to positions, to movies that are supposed to be some sort of inspirational biopic of either a Black character or some moving movie about racism itself that's supposed to sell as a palatable something to the libs, right?
Jordan Peele said he had to fight tooth and nail.
He solved it. Yay.
Yeah, very rarely. You're never gonna get like a budget as a Black guy to write a sci-fi movie or to write a horror movie or to write any of these other things where we can express these characters in these different environments. And the fact that,
Black sci-fi. What? Is there any good Black sci-fi? Is that a thing? It has to be a thing.
The thing that he just mentioned, Paradigm, the Lovecraft Country. Lovecraft Country is a sci-fi.
Okay.
There was the old show Mantis. That was really
Mantis.
Wait,
my
wait. Also, Kat.
I knew you were my favorite content creator for a reason.
Kat, you had your hand up.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, wow, me. Okay. I was just wondering 2 things. One, what do you guys think in general about like Shonda Rhimes? Because that's like the only person I can think about when I think of like Black writers for popular shows. So like Scandal, How to Get Away with Murder, these types of things. Do you think that's like a pretty, at least like a breakthrough, or do you find her kind of like irritating. Like, do you find like she just whitewashes it?
Propaganda, though.
What do you mean?
She writes a lot of she writes a lot of crime and procedural shows.
Yeah.
And a lot of propaganda. So like a lot of her shows reframe and praise the role of law enforcement. Like, didn't she also used to do some of the Law and Orders?
Yeah, I just know her from like Scandal, but
I don't know
yeah.
if she did like Suits as well, but it's a breakthrough in that she was and she started in the 90s, like long before Scandal and Making a Murderer. She went back years. She was in the mid 90s, and so to be a Black female writer with primetime TV shows that she was the head writer on, or she was directing.
Was the only one who was even remotely in the same class.
Yeah, no, that was huge. And someone mentioned the class element to it, and even look, class elements aside, even the fact of the matter is that Hollywood is gatekept to hell and back.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, everybody has to go through a producer if you're trying to make anything with any kind of significant budget. And that goes beyond even explicitly Black filmmakers, to take it to Hispanic filmmakers. Robert Rodriguez, he had a budget of fucking dirt to make Desperado, right? And so motherfucker had barely any money at all to make these movies and couldn't get anybody to sign on to make these movies because he's just like, I want to make a movie in Mexico about some cool crime stuff and an action movie, and everybody's like, nah, kick rocks. So he literally had to just make that out of his own pocket. And that's what you see with a lot of Black media. And so now we look at, Jordan Peele, who's just starting to attract things like investors into his movies. It's still difficult to this day. And yeah, being a director means you have to be able to summon that seed capital to put your vision up on the screen if you don't have it personally or don't have a community around you personally to do it. And assuming you're going to do it ethically and not the Tyler Perry way of fucking not paying your writers and shit. So
and then I guess the other question I had, because I remember Vaush was talking about it before, and I prepped you. What do you think about hood media?
Yeah, here we go.
Oh, you're really gonna do me like this, huh? Here today, now.
You set this stand up like, it's Black History Month. We had to be petty. But...
Yeah, all right, okay. All right, okay. So you already have a war in Ukraine, okay. All right. How do I? Let me just pull out all my diplomatic chops.
People in the hood don't care about Ukraine, bro.
They probably have other shit on their plate. You're right. Now, what do they care about? Getting my ass? No. Okay. Look. Okay. Here's my shit. Okay. So I grew up in Beverly Hills, obviously, or in a pretty great neighborhood. All right. But I had a lot of friends in East LA. This is not the best neighborhood. It's actually really, really bad. And the thing that always bothered me is that, so is there media of like hood stuff? I mean, yeah, there is. It's a decent amount, I guess. Not disproportionate, but it's enough that you can look for it if you're, you can find it if you're looking for it. The issue I had is that if you actually go over there and like hang out with people, like they're normal fucking people in the hood, right? You can talk about anything. But in media, it's like the hoodiness of the hood is so overwhelming that everything becomes so hoodified that it's like a caricature of itself. The poverty, don't get me wrong, poverty real, but it's now ultra mega poverty to the point where every single time anything involving money comes up, that has to be the point made. What does anyone want to talk about? Well, nobody can talk about anything. They're too busy being tired from all the work they do. And again, I know these are problems. They're real problems. I don't want to take away from that. But to a point, you were talking about Black suffering before, right? To a point, it feels like the overemphasization of some of these issues comes at the cost of a fair representation. It almost makes it like this cartoonish otherworld. But for me, I don't know. Whenever I went to East LA as a kid, and there were just people, like there'd be people on the lawn, and they'd be like loudly talking about, I think it was a James Bond movie, or whatever. But like, it was just such a normal thing. It was like a, personifying, humanizing. It was less of a caricature. I wish that doing content about like hood stuff was more destigmatized, and that there was more room to explore niches in that space outside of just, well, it's the hood movie, so it's the hood thing, you know, and then it would just be like every social problem that like a 13-year-old white guy in a suburb could list off just because they know about it because they've heard it from the rap songs. You know what I mean? That I don't know. I'm sure you could do that in good or bad ways.
That was. I'm gonna be honest with you.
I'm with you.
I didn't know how you was going to respond to that, but you did an excellent job. You said
all right. Okay, we did. There's no war in Ukraine.
Black Assembly has met, and we have all decided you pass.
You pass.
I know you said you didn't watch Dragon Ball Z, but that was a Goku dodge, my friend.
Okay, but I'm glad you get what I mean by that, right?
Vaush. The show that you need to watch, the show that you are literally explicitly describing, is Atlanta.
The Wire.
Atlanta.
No.
I need to watch The Wire.
But Atlanta, as far as like a hood movie that explores other aspects of the hood that isn't about it being gangster, it both intrinsically like has that as an element, as in the background of that, but the characters aren't there as a vehicle to show gangsterness. The characters are it's more of a funny exploration, and there's a lot of genre bending. It's really, really good. You should try it. Yeah, that's my recommendation.
Because like people, right? Like.
Yeah,
people can carve out lives in the shittiest of situations. You know, you can do this. You know, medieval peasants. You know, they lived shit lives. But if you went back and looked at every piece of media about medieval peasants, it's not like every one of them would be, you know, the medieval peasantry. You know, like it's all terrible. You know, and it is terrible. I'm not saying it's not. Just other stuff happens. You know, wacky shit. People have adventures. I really like. Have any of you seen Craig and the Creek by chance? It's a Newark cartoon. It's really, I like it at least. It's a cartoon. I mean, it's like a kid cartoon, I guess, or all ages, whatever. But you know, it's a relatively affluent neighborhood somewhere in Northeast U.S. I don't know. And there are a lot of black people in the neighborhood. There's a creek and the kids play. It's all imagination, fun stuff, whatever. But I really like the show because I feel like it does a good job of, you know, recognizing the elements of black culture that would have like influenced the growing up all the kids, you know. But
if I could interject,
they can do whatever. They can do whatever. They have freedom. I think that's great. And yes, please.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, but I was just gonna say, I think part of the issue that comes is that like, so like things that are like quote unquote hood stuff, like whether it's types of foods or certain behaviors, I feel like that shit comes off as so extreme sometimes, especially depending on the audience. Like if it's coming from the white gaze or like a white upper middle class gaze, that there's no way to make that not seem cartoonish, because that's a level of poverty that they probably didn't even know was even possible in the United States of America. Because that's a problem I run in pretty frequently with, like, you know, if I talk to people in a certain class about Baltimore and I tell them like there's people that have like third world conditions here, like people that live without running water, people that live without electricity, right? People that have like mold or lead or whatever, they think that you're exaggerating or like you're just trying to do like communist vibes.
Yeah, like an SJW, yeah, like you're playing it up for the yeah,
exactly, yeah. So I feel like that kind of like, because I get what you're saying, and like, because I immediately thought of like Straight Outta Compton, right? Because it's like it starts off with him like making a play. You know what I mean? He's going, I guess somebody owes him money, or he owes somebody money. He's going to pick up a bag or whatever, and there's like a tense ass like standoff, or just any type of like a drug deal, just something as simple as like a drug deal, like a street handoff. I feel like is like regular shit to people that have been exposed to it, especially on a regular basis. But like, you know what I mean? I feel like people from that world would be like, oh my God, he really does that? People really do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, people don't follow even the simplest shit, right? Like, you know, basically, like, I mean, again, stereotype here, but like pretty much all black people in the U.S. like tense up a bit around cops for fairly evident reasons, but
reasonable stereotype.
Yeah. You know, a lot of, even to a lot of white people, you know, even that's kind of like, oh, you're kidding, you know? But like, that's pretty straightforward. That's like a day one thing. That's like day one, you learn black people exist. They tend to get mistreated by police, you know, like, oh, you know, right there. But I guess sometimes even that's too much for some people in terms of, you know, cultural awareness in their periphery.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm
Yeah,
really
like
tired.
I had issues with a police well, it was a few police officers and they had me pulled up and the one I had my hands on my head the whole time and the one officer was like, "You can stop being so melodramatic." And I'm like, "My guy, your other dude over there has had his taser out this entire interaction. Like, I'm not trying to make any sudden movements and you're still just being melodramatic cuz we live in a post-racial society now, you know what I mean?" So
And as
it's America, so it's the greatest country in America ever to ever exist. So,
Well, to be fair, America is the greatest country in America to ever exist. We do have,
okay, sorry.
it's by default, we do have that.
Excuse me,
I
no,
was-
that's Texas.
I was gonna say, so earlier you had pointed out that there was this weird parallel between understanding the Black experience and representing that properly. And throughout our conversation, we kind of almost fell back within ourselves to like hold both positions. And then you had made the mistake of Will Smith and Chris Tucker. So to go on that Men in Black example, hold on, no, I'm giving you credit.
No
for
need
this.
to harp on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know they all look alike?
All right, no, okay, all right. They're buddy cop movies that both came out in the late 90s.
No, fair enough.
Okay.
I only eat
And-
fried chicken once a day. Jesus, Vaush.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I brought up Romeo Must Die, because like Rush Hour was cop movies. Romeo Must Die was an actual gang movie.
Yeah.
You know, they were all gang members. Even Jet Li's character was the son of a gang member, right? So
In Men in Black 3, so to identify a specific case where we could say a black character was playing a black actor was playing a white person. Men in Black 3, where if you've ever seen Men in Black 3, there's this part where he goes back to the past and he gets stopped by two white cops. And they're like, "How did you get this car? Are you a sports player or something?" Da, da, da. And he doesn't really do anything, but he like pulls out the neuralizer and catches them. And to me, it's like, you wouldn't have had enough time to do that. You wouldn't have had enough time to put on the sunglasses. They would have said, "Why are you reaching?" They wouldn't have been like, they put them on the hood of the car and they like, but they wouldn't have given you the leeway to be in control of that situation if you did watch that movie. That's the identity of like, oh, you have a black actor, but existing within a white circumstance. The affordability of the time in certain interactions to make a decision. For a lot of black people existing in this country, we aren't afforded that time. We're on a survival tactic. We're okay, I know this, I know that. I gotta just move with it until I get to a point where I don't have to think about that too often. Like,
What he's trying to say is we all love Miles Morales, but let's be real,
I
he'd
hate
get
you
shot.
so much.
Throw the do-rag on him. I want to see Miles Morales in a silky too, no poly.
so you want the undeniable swagger of a black teen.
Yes, the
There it is.
confident. Yeah. Oh yeah, I guess. Well, yeah, Into the Spider-Verse was good. I don't know if you would consider that like black culture in the same way as a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about today, but at the very least,
I
I
think
mean,
Claim.
Still
It's not
really
bad,
good,
I
like a
mean-
good move, because typically, you know, like they talked about Donald Glover becoming like Spider-Man, and everybody was like, "Oh my god, a fucking black!" So you know, finally they did it.
That's why
It was
Brian
good.
Michael
Well, it was
Bendis said
good.
that's why he did that.
Post
What's
Malone
actually-
though, on the soundtrack. Ugh.
What's actually interesting is with comics, like they do this often. Like comics are weirdly, probably because, you know, conservatives make terrible media and comics are great media. So obviously liberals. So the comics always kind of try to put on the struggle. Like they actually do that ahead of time. Like the whole reason why Miles Morales was created in the Ultimates universe was to have a black character. The reason why She-Hulk was created was to have a strong female character. And initially there was initial backlash to both of them. And then lo and behold, 5-10 years later, they're the most important
popular.
people. Yeah, in those universes, which is like this weird same thing that happens with all of our media. Whenever something that we have comes out, there's always this huge stigma against it, and then there's a eventual acceptance. Maybe representation
Well, that's
matters. I don't know. Maybe that's
Well,
what the lesson is.
maybe I'd actually, if I may, I'm gonna have to dip at the hour because we're getting on 3 hours, and I came into this under less than the best circumstances. But I would like to ask everyone, or I'd like to go one by one, actually, I guess, so I can know for sure. But if you, so we're talking about Black creative media. I'll step out of this one as the resident Mayo man. If there's a piece of media you could create, like maybe not a specific story, whatever, but like a thing you want to see, like an idea, something you want to see more of. I'm interested. What would you, if you could will that into existence? How would you shore up the deficit of good, available, authentic Black culture that's present here in America, I guess, everywhere, but I mean, I think we're all Americans. Is that a good question? Can I ask that? That feels like a closing.
And
Okay.
do you want us to do outros with it so that you can, or?
Yeah, that seems like a logical and fair-minded thing that one might think if they weren't sleep deprived.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
I've hosted panels before.
I have not. Aston Mack, if I may, what would you like to see?
Honestly, I want Black people in more different types of media. So give me a Black cyberpunk fantasy, please. Something like what's that tabletop Shadow something? I can't remember its name.
Shadowrun.
Yeah. Give me a Shadowrun with Black folks.
So much.
Yeah, but and generally, or things like I was saying, I keep saying Atlanta because Donald Glover was just given a lot of creative license to kind of bend genres, just stuff where we don't have to be, where the focus, our race isn't the focus of the film, like us overcoming racism isn't the film. Give us creative license. I just want us to get us a chance to write that sort of stuff. And specifically, actually, let me make this one call. I'll actually do it to all of you guys out there. Weebs, I am asking you, I am on my knees, accept us into your clan. Make Blackame. Yeah, Blackame. I want Black anime. Just give me
Busters.
Yeah, no. I want like little juicy thick, like cute anime Black girls running around the screen, and all of us talking about who's going to be the best waifu. And for once, it's a Black girl. Everybody would buy it. Everybody would love it.
Giant mechs with spinners. With spinners.
Yeah, giant mechs with like chrome spinning parts and like all of it. I need all of it. That's what I want. For those of you guys that are interested, though, thank you so much for your time. I do want to say, Vaush, this is the exact sort of interaction that I think that I love to see that has been missing. Normalize having Black friends. Normalize entering Black spaces, just like we have to normalize entering white spaces. And if anybody doesn't think you're an ally at this point, well, they have the VDS.
Look, all I can say to that effect is, a lot of people accuse me of being racist, and I don't want to embarrass them by proving them wrong by having Black people on too often. I would come off impolite, I don't want to. No. I get you. I've enjoyed being on the panel tremendously. It's always good. Also, I'm on Twitter too often, so I have to like detoxify the whiteness that I deal with day to day.
I feel it.
To be fair, you have to detoxify the Blackness on Twitter too.
True, depending on who you follow, yeah.
But just for my name, I'm Aston Mack. You can find me at Aston Mack on Twitter. The TV show's Aston Mack TV on Twitch. I point a lens at, I try to do activism on the ground. You'll be seeing me at CPAC this week. You'll also be seeing me going over many different organizations and how you can join mutual aid organizations and make a difference in your community. So again, it's Aston Mack. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
To CPAC, dude.
Sounds lit.
Dude, we do every year, and like last year I was actually there, and I saw a gay Confederate Black guy. You don't see those in the wild.
Now that's bringing representation. Okay, we got to shore up those those perceptions.
He had a rainbow Confederate flag and everything. It was wild.
I am kink shaming. Endless Cemetery.
You're not down with the yassification of white supremacy?
Yeah, the yesified Confederacy. Queer eye for the Confederate guy, putting all the Civil War uniforms, get them some tassels. What would you like to see? If you could.
I'm a nerd. Like Aston said, I want to see more Black anime, but I think this shit is a layup. Like, there was already talks of the Static Shock movie with Michael B. Jordan. I just want a whole Dakota verse. It would be exactly like what you were saying you wanted. What we all want is just like hood people doing regular shit, and then boom, the Big Bang happens, and suddenly everybody has superpowers, right? That would be dope with the Dakota verse, but also Icon, I feel like would be just such a crucial, that could be a landmark piece of Black culture if done correctly. You literally have an alien that came to Earth, the same exact story as Superman, except he lands on Earth in a plantation, right? And gets all that experience and lives all the way to the modern day and has all that knowledge and all of that resource to draw from. That would be chef's kiss. If we could just have all of those stories told, and even the in-between stuff like Gotham, where it's just regular people. You don't even have to have all the superheroetry and stuff. Like, I feel like DC already owns the Dakotaverse. Rest in peace, Dwayne McDuffie. But yeah, I feel like that's a layup. That's what I would love to see. And yeah, I'm Endless Cemetery. I do a podcast with my housemate called The Bolsheviks. It's a lot of commie stuff and just talking about local Baltimore stuff and politics. I do Twitch at I'm at twitch.tv/Endless Cemetery. Facebook at facebook.com/Endless Cemetery Games. YouTube at YouTube/user/Endless Cemetery. I'm on Twitter at MFEndless. TikTok is Endless Cemetery as well. I also do electronic music. I used to play metal and got out of that, and now I do EDM because I'm the only person that has to get paid for that. That's at soundcloud.com/nightmare difficulty. And as far as my content goes, I literally just talk about like abolishing the police. I support my friends in Food Not Bombs. I always support direct action and mutual aid, solidarity not charity. And I talk about other leftist quote unquote stuff. I try to keep it American because, like I said, I'm a himbo who just cares a lot. So the purview of what I feel I'm qualified to speak on is very limited. But those are the vibes, and I am an ass beater Jax on Mortal Kombat 11, and also a dope Taki on Soul Calibur 6. So
Man, trying to
yeah.
get the matches.
Yeah, but
We'll
what's your
run
friend
some.
code on Switch for Smash? Like, because that's where men are truly tested.
Okay, I'll message you after the panel. We'll run
All
some.
right.
We'll run some.
Yeah,
But,
give us your
Nah,
port
we'll
forwarding
run
detail
some.
for for your Project M codes. Thank you. Seriously.
Yeah, thank you. And I was gonna say thank you, Vaush, for doing this. A lot is said about you, but like I said, this is some stand-up shit, and I really wish this was normalized. And you're cool as.
Thank you. I try my best. And honey, what media would you will into existence if you could?
I would just say what I would like to see. Not even a media. I would like to see a Afro Latina with 4C hair who does not have one white Hispanic mom and a black dad. Miles Morales, love him, love that he was there. But
Your audio's a little bit screwy, by the way.
ugh, you know what?
Let's try. Oh, uh-oh.
You can hear me?
Oh,
Yeah.
hello.
Amazingly.
All right, fine. Like I said, Miles Morales, great representation. It was the first Afro Puerto Rican that I've seen actually loved and represented correctly. But I just want to see a media where it is a black girl who's also a black Hispanic, whose both parents are black, because it seems that Afro Latinidad is constantly whitewashed to just having one white parent, when that's not what Afro Latinidad is really. Though that's the one side of Afro Latinidad we will never really get to see, because it's always this appeal to the sexy white Hispanic woman. So we can just start with that, seeing more girls like me. That would be great, and it would like really limit and the amount of trauma that Black Hispanics really go through already. We can start there, and then we can get into the topics a little bit more later. But we can definitely start there. My name is Iesha. You could call me Honey. X is silent. It's just there because I love the weekend. Before Kat kills me, I am running for Miss New York. For Miss New York. My Instagram is Honey with 3 Y's, I believe. Yeah, 3 Y's. In that link tree, I have the GoFundMe for Miss New York, where it helps with competition expenses, and it goes slowly to competition expenses. I have where my TikTok is linked. It's Flaquita, FLACITAAA, where currently my account is almost restricted because white Hispanics don't like me. My Twitter, I think, is Iesha XL. And yeah, huge Weekend fan, as you can see.
Thank you very much, and I hope that you become the city of New York, or is it the state? It's the state, right? It'd be the state.
Yeah, the state. And then if I go on for Miss USA, when I go on, I'm going to put that out there. Then I'll become the whole United States of America.
I hope you conquer the entire United States of America. Thank you. Howdy, Car.
Hey, what's up?
You remember I'll say it again because I don't want to be accused of being unfair. What media would you make, man?
Yes.
If you could.
Well, it's less a specific type of media and more a broader cultural movement that I want to see take the forefront. I kind of want it to be a big, strong push like it had with all the white European folks back in the 70s and 80s. I'm a punk and I'm an anarchist and I'm a rocker and a metalhead. So I want to see the black alt scene push to the forefront and see that in the media and the music videos. I want to see my black punks with their spikes and their fucking studs and their don't give a fuck attitude. All right. I want to see the music of many black alt artists get pushed to the forefront because they do exist out there. Right now they're very niche and they're really, really talented. So those are sort of and I want to see black goths, which I also am. I want to see them come to the forefront, and I want to see black metalheads, and I want to see all of that. And not to get too spicy for stream, I want to see the black kink community get talked about and get represented in movies and things like that. So that's what I would like to see. It's not a specific type of media. I wanted to cross all media and just in general representation. Aside from that, I am Car. I do black anarchist political commentary on YouTube. You can find me on YouTube searching for Car at KAR. I do not review Car 98 firearms. That's another channel. So keep scrolling. And basically, I kind of just talk about lefty stuff. I did recently make a video about the horrors of hosting international sporting events in your town. Please do check that out. It's very video essayist. It's very video essayist bread tube of me. It's 30 minutes long, which is saying something because most of my videos average 10. And I think you all would like it. Aside from that, Kat, thank you for inviting me to be on this panel. As with last time, it's been an absolute blast. Vaush will chat.
You're closer to home. Thank you. KataraNä, not an actual animal cat.
I hosted this. I go last. Okay.
All right. As one does. Paradigm Shift. Hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Looking
I
great
got
too.
a lot of. Thank you. Yeah, I had to do I planned this outfit and then I was wearing the shirt. I got to look this. It's I forgot the name of the brand, but it had the kitty and like you pull the little pocket down and it's the kitty giving you the fingers. And then I was like, wait a minute, no, I've wanted to wear this the whole time. I got some surprises for you guys, and I got to answer to your question. Aston, Endless. I am creating a live action manga series. So it's going to take still frames. It's going to take still images and combine them with like small moving parts to create like an actual readable, but watchable anime manga type thing. And it is going to be heavily minority based. Obviously I live in New York City, so it's not like I'm where to, y'all get what I mean. The proximity. So I got y'all on that. Don't worry.
I was going to say, if you need some props printed,
say less.
I'm down as long, even though like a gangster isekai would be interesting. Please don't make an isekai.
Oh no. I'm going way. We going way. Well, it's gonna fall in that pattern because it has to, but it's
I
going to go
want
way
that.
deeper.
I want the gangster isekai. I want the strapped up isekai.
Will there be a
Car,
part where the person
yeah, go
trips on the stairs and lands on the
Yeah.
breasts of
Oh,
another
somebody
person?
called me out.
Yeah, that's actually gonna happen. That's actually
Good.
we talked about that. Yeah, that's actually gonna happen. We're doing all the tropes. Like I gotta hit it because this has never been made before. So I'm embarking on new ground. Car.
Yeah.
I heavily suggest you look into Jesus Piece. Jesus Piece is a great hardcore band. And from there, I'm sure you'll find a lot more. But I wanted to tell you that the Black alt scene is on the big rise. Like I'm talking regional, national tours.
No,
I know you
in
know
it.
that.
I want it to. I want to see it go full mainstream.
Yeah, mainstream. Yeah,
Like,
I feel you.
I want there to be a black Nickelback. I want there to be a black Slipknot. I want there to be a black in Bad Religion. Like,
Heard you, got you.
I'm
heard
trying
you.
to be on my Black 9 Inch Nails shit.
yeah, there you go. I want there to be a black Trent Reznor.
Black
being much less pretentious.
and that Black Evanescence. Wait, is that tech? No, I'm not gonna say that.
That's pretty much what Willow's
Jada
doing
Pinkett.
now.
I was just about to say.
yeah. As far as me personally, I want to see what I am creating, and that is mainstream Black people who talk uniquely and are able to capitalize on that within this system. I want a complete, I don't want to say the destruction of the capitalist hierarchy, but I want to see genuine representation from people who really feel like they have something to say, but don't have to feed into the machine of producing every day and doing this and being consistently online. I want more Black people to grow into mainstream artists naturally. I don't want the you got a few, you got your Black, you got Black, and you got well, at this point Willow, if you want to go into that medium, and Jaden Smith, but I want more authenticity in music, and I would love to see a group of Black poets, honestly, hit the forefront of a mainstream audience, because as you obviously can tell, that space is completely dominated by the fellows. But yeah, I got y'all on the anime. Let's see if I could do this outro properly. It's been a while. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. If you enjoyed what you saw today, please do me a favor and follow everyone that you've heard today, but also follow me at twitch.tv/the_paradigm_shift. Please email Twitch right now and let them know to give me back my username. I hate the underscores. If you haven't already guessed, I am a poet. I am a gamer. I was part of the pro circuit for a while. I got out of it. I am a teacher, first and foremost, but I am also a photographer, videographer. I teach things on Twitch. I talk about anything I want, and I'm sorry. I know Vaush is banned, but I'm going to be the next king of Twitch politics, because none of y'all are saying shit that I'm saying. And if you're interested in seeing how I can back up that claim with unrefutable evidence, I got a catalog already. In my first year, I did 612 videos. You can find all of them at youtube.com/c/the paradigm shift. I know a couple of y'all had some issues with that. I already saw some comments on my YouTube. I appreciate that. You can find me on Twitter at Marquise Paradigm. I am beefing with everybody. Ted Cruz don't like me, and I'm gonna smack him when I see him. I just on site, like I'm just letting you know, off rip. And if you're interested in seeing more high energy stuff, not at 11 o'clock, yo, come check me out. I'm here. Check the lighting, check the camera. You know we styling, we profiling. Grab your blunts, grab your drinks. What's up? What you doing?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. KataraNä, not actually a cat. I almost said not actually a human cat, but you are a human.
The Dr. Michael thinks that I am a cat thing. That's what he called me, so I'll just call myself a thing from now on. Correct pronouns.
That's good. That works.
Yeah. Hello. Hi.
Hello.
My name is KataraNä. Thank you so much for coming here today, Vaush. For things that I would like to see more of, so obvious. I would like to see more representation within the Black STEM fields, as different types of people that get children engaged. The only reason why I decided that I was okay to go into physics and not other things is because I saw the first Black woman to get a PhD in astrophysics happened a year before I graduated, and then everybody else in my family was like, "Shut up." you shut up. Black women could do this. I saw it. She did it. So I think we need more people to go ahead and fill in that role and not show it's just Bill Nye the Science Guys and Carl Sagan, but more Neil deGrasse Tyson's, just ones that won't touch women at their workplaces. Ooh.
One would hope.
Okay. One would hope. So yeah, outside of that, I think it would just be nice to see more multicultural representation. So did you know that Black people can make kids with things other than white people? Yes, some of us are Asian and Black, and some of us are Indian and Black, and sometimes we're Arab and Black. Crazy. So I would like to see more of that type of thing come in, because like it just seems like all interracial is just white and Black people, and sometimes there's dynamics that can come up that are bad even when you're not just dating white people. Cool. And yeah, hello, my name is KataraNä. I'm a physicist. I am officially becoming an EU resident as of this Sunday. I like trains and I like taxes, so I've decided to fuck off because I don't want to have a car, and EU is good for trains. They go vroom. I'm so excited. And yeah, I guess for now, what I will be doing is packing streams, but at some point I would hope to start getting more involved inside the science scene, because the political Twitch feed gets on my fucking nerves. I thought this was politics, not drama hour, but Lamau, I guess I was wrong. So
Sorry.
yeah, that's me. Specifically you. Oh, I'm so tired of you and Azan. No.
Yeah, okay, to be fair, I'm not accepting 50-50 blame on that one. Thank you. Well, I should say thank you because you invite. So earlier, thank you. Earlier I said that I wouldn't speak up on this because I'm white, but I was lying. I am going to. So I'm going to play the stereotype here. I'm a pretty big fan of Dune and of Warhammer 40K. And I really like dystopic, futuristic sci-fi. You know, I like futures where like humans have to scrap together $8 trillion worth of armor to do battle with like aliens the size of planets. Whatever, you know. The issue is the aesthetics of this genre are almost always rooted heavily in fascism, white supremacy, and Catholicism, particularly. You know. There's some variants. Dune has some variants. Warhammer 40K is explicitly like, what if we? Yeah. What if we just took like,
super fashy
medieval Gothic architecture and only white people? They didn't even have black people. There wasn't even black people. They had black space marines, but they were like black, like black, and they were burned. It wasn't even black people. Anyway, I think it would be cool if there was for no other reason than an aesthetic update, you know, to see that attitude, that mantra being applied to the iconography and the culture of other cultures broadly, but also of historical Africa, because they built some really sick shit, you know. I mean, we kind of blew it up, but they did build it. they did build it.
I think all they have is the Necrons, right? Like, aren't they descended from Egyptians? I thought.
Yeah, they're Egyptian coded, and don't get me wrong, they're cool and all, you know. But like, if you look at the architect, like the Nubian Empire and stuff, they're like really cool, you know, and stuff like that. I think they do a lot of good work there. Anyway, I actually really enjoyed this, in spite of coming into this really sleep deprived. Thank you all so much for the
thank you.
Yeah, for the wonderful convo. And I hope all of you have a great day. Kat, thank you for inviting me, and broadly for calling me out and accusing me of being racist.
Vaush, before you go, because I'm about to leave as well because I'm dummy tired. I just want to say, and I'm going to make this statement, and we could argue about it on Twitter if you'd like.
Oh, no. We're doing so well.
No, I swear to God, you're going to be like, oh, I didn't see that coming. I believe Eren did nothing wrong. Agree, disagree?
Wait, Jaeger?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did. He fucking killed everyone. What are you talking about?
All right, wait. This is spoilers. Yeah, I read the manga, but people haven't seen the anime yet. So,
are you a Griffith did nothing wrong edgelord too? Or?
I'm just saying, like, if it pressed between like, it's always gonna be all out war, or like it's gonna be us getting like, what was it? Euthanize, like no more babies. Like I'm going with the rumbling. I'm sorry, Eren did nothing.
Eren
wrong.
Yeager is the Professor Flowers of anime.
Oh, stop. Okay.
The wreck.
I don't
No,
think
no,
that's
no, no,
particularly fair, but
That's
I'm
not,
not.
that's not fair.
I'm not
That's
reigniting
fair. That's
any
a
of
bad
this.
representation. I should have said that.
Oh no.
I'm done.
Thank you. I disavow all of this. I
I
love.
take it all back. This is my this. I want to say that she's a very nice person who has very nice opinions that oftentimes get misconstrued. Okay, I know. I just
I wanted
yeah,
to sit her down with Bink. Shout out to
Oh
Bink, for
no.
instance.
Well, okay,
Big
really,
princess.
really quick though. I just want to say, it seems like you inspired a lot of us to get started with streaming. Like Paradigm got started because of you, and then like Max started streaming because of you. And I was tired of watching you debate Nazis, and then I wanted to debate my own Nazis.
Which you did
yeah, thank
recently,
you for getting
even.
all of
one
us
does.
involved in streaming. You are really my favorite white ally.
May you all be better than me. Thank you.
I like that he's breaking stereotypes by having all these stream babies and taking care of none of them.
Okay, no, stop. All right. Thank you.
All right,
Goodbye.
we're
Yeah,
done.
listen, okay. I'm sharing this is a cultural osmosis, okay? I'm sharing the burden. I love you all. Have a wonderful day. I'm gonna pass out, okay?
Likewise.
Thank you.
Good night.
Peace.
Have a good
Sorry guys.